Chapter 19. Congratulations! As soon as Ray Minkai opened his eyes and woke up from his coma, a familiar voice, a familiar face, and a familiar cynical smile appeared in front of him. Roy! Ray Minkai frowned, turned his head left and right, looked around, and found that he was lying in a ward. After thinking about it, Ray Minkai gradually remembered the moment when the conference center hotel collapsed. In order to escape with Euphemia, he had to choose to preserve his last trace of strength and drove Lancelot to the top floor of the hotel. In the end, at the moment when the danger was gone, the backlash of power caused Ray Minkai to fall into a coma. Ray Minkai's memory ended here. TSK. Damn, it was really dangerous at that time. Although you saved Lancelot and Her Royal Highness, your mask was almost taken off by Her Royal Highness Euphemia. Roy touched his chin while looking at the silver mask on Ray Minkai's face. On the side, Sayer also said, speaking of which, it was really dangerous. If we were a step late, Her Royal Highness Euphemia would have taken off your mask and checked your condition. You know, your face was covered in blood at that time. Is that so? Ray Minkai raised his hand and touched the mask on his face, feeling the coldness. Although the situation at that time was that Ray Minkai was forced to wear this mask as time passed, whether it was Royd, Sayer, or Ray Minkai himself, they all maintained a tacit understanding and jointly kept the secret hidden under the mask. Therefore, this mask was impossible and absolutely could not be taken off by others. K. According to the results of the examination, there are no major problems with your body. You only need to stay in the hospital for 3 days for observation, then you could be discharged. Sayer glanced at the medical record hanging at the end of the bed and said with a smile, Yes. K. If I knew anything about biology, I'm afraid I would have to study your body. How enviable. From the looks of it, such a terrifying injury actually healed in a few days. Royd clicked his tongue in wonder as he looked at Ray Minkai's medical record. Suddenly, he slapped his head and exclaimed, Oh, right. K, here's your new job. New job? Ray Minkai blinked. He seemed to be slow because he had been unconscious for a long time. Here. This was a warrant issued by Governor Cornelia. It was brought here by Deputy Governor UFFI Leah 3 hours ago. Cecil picked up a document from the table beside him and handed it to Ray Minkai. When Ray Minkai took the document and opened it, Roy didn't forget to add salt and vinegar. What a pity. If Her Highness Euphemia had come 3 hours later, she might have been able to see the hero in her heart. Royd. Cecil seemed to be unable to stand Royd's addition of salt and vinegar and quickly stopped him. Royd curled his lips and straightened his face. He looked at Ray Minkai, who had finished reading the warrant, and asked, So, K, what's the new job? Ray Minkai raised his hand and handed the warrant to Royd. Royd, take a look too. After all, it has something to do with the special mission. When Royd heard this, he reached out and took the warrant. As a result, as soon as he saw the contents of the warrant, Royd screamed, Impossible! If this goes on, how can Lancelot collect actual combat data? Cecil, who was somewhat confused, took the warrant from Royd and looked at it. He couldn't help but exclaim, The pilot Knight K from the Special Mission Guide Technical Department will be in charge of the Special Department from the day he receives the warrant. He will be responsible for investigating and dealing with all inappropriate matters in Area 11. Sigh. If K accepts this warrant, Lancelot won't have a chance to attack again, Royd said while grabbing his hair with a frown. Compared to Royd's frown, Ray Minkai had another opinion. No, Royd. Even if I accept this warrant, I can't pilot Lancelot to battle. You should know what the inappropriate matters in Area 11 are pointing to. What is it? Royd was taken aback. After blinking his eyes quickly, he suddenly screamed, I get it. The Black Knight Regiment is inappropriate. The strange explosion at the port is also inappropriate. And those guerrillas are also inappropriate. If we casually bring out these factors, it might be an opportunity for Lancelot to attack. As he spoke, Royd laughed. Moreover, we don't always need to submit applications. In terms of authority, we should now be regarded as a subordinate to the governor's office, but we maintain an independent department. Probably that's it. Ray Minkai nodded. If I'm not wrong, maybe the governor will send someone to join this suddenly established department. Wait. Now we're being sent to join this new department? It was Seahill's turn to be slow. Yes. Yes. Royd nodded again and again. I thought it was not a good thing, but I didn't expect Governor Cornelia to give such a large authority to Kay. Is this really okay? Such a large authority, I'm afraid it will cause trouble, right? Moreover, even if such a department is to be established, it's not our turn to be sent, and it's not Kay's turn to be the person in charge, right? Regarding Royd's optimism, Seahill always considered the long term. No. Because of this, the governor issued this order. Not to mention the existence of a nameless night, I'm afraid that only a few people will know about it. Therefore, after receiving this order, our low-key style can also provide cover for the early operations. Therefore, in terms of investigating Zero, as well as other matters, we will have more convenient conditions than the personal guards. Although Ray Minkai had been unconscious for the past few days, his sharp mind naturally guessed the meaning behind this order. The next day, a visitor proved that Ray Minkai's guess was correct. Long silver hair tied into a slanted ponytail, brown skin, a tall figure, and a serious and fierce expression. This was Veretta New, whom he had not seen for a long time. Ever since the internal conflict in the Pure Blood sect, Ray Minkai had not seen her again. Moreover, from the information he received from Royd, it seemed that due to the internal conflict in the Pure Blood sect, she was under investigation. Now, this arrogant mainstay of the Pure Blood sect was standing in front of Ray Minkai, solemnly bowing to Ray Minkai. 9th Special Division, Veretta New, reporting on behalf of Governor Cornelia, Lee Britannia. Ray Minkai stood up from the bed and returned the greeting. Welcome to us. Veretta New, yes. Thank you very much. After the usual greeting, Ray Minkai let Veretta sit on a chair and said with a slight nod, although I already guessed that the governor would send someone here, I didn't expect it to be an acquaintance of yours, Veretta. Veretta shook her head slightly, seeming to be hesitant. But soon, she made a decision. Actually, it was I who requested to be transferred here. The observant Ray Minkai noticed the unwillingness on Veretta's face. Did something happen? As soon as he spoke, Ray Minkai immediately stopped talking. No, if it's inconvenient, you don't have to say it. Now, I need you to do something for me. Veretta opened her mouth, stood up, and replied, yes. Please tell me. Veretta, before tomorrow, he had to investigate the social benefits provided to 11. Also, if possible, I hope to have a report on the illegal drug refrain on my desk before I leave the hospital. Can you do that? Facing Ray Minkai's obviously difficult request, Veretta did not back down. Instead, she felt that her choice might not be wrong. Yes, no problem. The Brown Beauty decisively accepted the first mission. The first mission was successfully issued, but for this new department that seemed to have great authority, but in fact, it only targeted the Black Knight Squad. The road ahead was still long. Moreover, when Veretta was collecting information on the social benefits provided to 11, the Black Knight Squad lurking in the dark finally made their move. Under the leadership of the Black Knight Squad, under the leadership of Zero, the Black Knight Squad quickly arrested several corrupt officials and businessmen who secretly withheld social benefits and other aid materials and sentenced them to death. In just a few days, even if Ray Minkai was still in the hospital, he could hear some rumors from the nurses coming and going. After all, the officials who were executed by the Black Knight Squad were not low in status. Therefore, the speed of the news was very fast. Under such circumstances, Ray Minkai no longer stayed in the hospital. Instead, he chose to leave the hospital early and went to the temporary office arranged for him. Veretta, who heard the news early, also put all the prepared information on the desk and waited for Ray Minkai's inspection. At the same time, the newcomers who were also transferred from their original positions by Cornelia to this new department also lined up in the office and waited for Ray Minkai's arrival. As soon as he stepped into the office, Ray Minkai couldn't help but secretly rejoice that the office was spacious enough to allow all 20 of his teammates to stand in front of the desk in a relaxed manner. Ray Minkai ignored the various looks in the eyes of these newcomers. Instead, he calmly walked behind the desk and stood in his seat. After he exchanged glances with Veretta, he looked at his new subordinates. Perhaps you're all wondering about one thing. Why did the governor transfer you to this unknown department and let you be far away from the positions that you were once familiar with and had a promising future? I'm also wondering the same thing as you. I'm also wondering why the governor gathered us here. Ray Minkai paused, raised his hand, and knocked on the documents on the desk, and said in a deep voice, "But as long as you finish reading these documents on the desk, look carefully. My doubts and yours will be solved." District 11, as a satellite territory, when it was supposed to provide supplies and support to the brave soldiers of the Empire on the front lines, when it was supposed to provide strength for the prosperity of the Empire, it secretly bred corruption that shouldn't exist. Darkness. Ray Minkai casually picked up the documents related to the distribution of social welfare and shook them in front of the line. Perhaps you will laugh at me. This is just the normal state of the Empire. This is just the attitude that the Empire should have in the darkness. In the face of such common sense, my answer is, you are all wrong. Although Governor Cornelius strictly differentiates between the Britannians and the numbers, the governor knows that the Britannians should fight on the front lines for the prosperity of the Empire, lay down their heads, and shed their blood. And the numbers, under the protection of the noble and glorious Britannians, should conscientiously produce supplies and support for the Empire soldiers. This is the attitude that District 11 should have. It should have. Speaking of this, Ray Minkai picked up the document, threw it at the line, and asked loudly, You, tell me loudly, why did District 11 become like this now? Is 11 stupid and unteachable? Was it because of the illegal drugs flowing into the country? Or is it because of the official corruption? In an instant, the audience was silent. Veretta, standing next to Ray Minkai, looked at Ray Minkai in shock. She never expected that Ray Minkai would say something so shocking that he directly lifted the veil of the unspoken rules hidden under the table in District 11. In the silence, Ray Minkai suddenly burst into laughter. Ha ha! It seems that you all understand what is going on here. Ray Minkai snorted coldly, raised his hand and pointed to the door, and said coldly, "Those who are afraid can leave immediately. Those who are bold can stay. 30 seconds to consider. Veretta, count down." "Yes." Veretta responded and began to count down. 30, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Veretta, who finished the countdown, looked at Ray Minkai. Ray Minkai nodded his head in satisfaction as he looked at the line of people who hadn't left. "It seems that those who stay are bold people. Very good. Then, from today onwards, we will all be part of the Special Department Q directly under Governor Cornelia." As soon as Ray Minkai's voice fell, Veretta took the initiative to lead everyone and shouted respectfully, "Yes, Lord." Chapter 20. The bright moon hung high in the night sky. Under the night sky, even in the early hours of the morning, there was still an endless flow of traffic on the ring road. A convoy was quickly driving along the ring road to a warehouse on the edge of the concession. "Okay, the personnel are ready." In the command vehicle in the middle of the convoy, Veretta handed a document to Ray Minkai sitting in front of the command console. Ray Minkai nodded, took the document, and flipped through it for a while, then put it on the table. "Okay, 0. Will the Black Knight order really appear?" Veretta's eyes paused on the document, then turned to Ray Minkai and asked, "Since the end of the hostage kidnapping incident, there have been continuous attacks. The culprits were undoubtedly the Black Knight Order. But in fact, the Black Knight Order targeted some criminals and corrupt officials who were greedy for social benefits. As a result, the reputation of the Black Knights soared among the 11 members. And in a sense, the Black Knight Order led by 0 was actually helping the concession to eliminate the parasites. They will come. Judging from the frequency and scale of the attacks during this period, 0 and the Black Knight Order have fewer and fewer targets to choose from." Ray Minkai's right index finger tapped on the document, and he chuckled. Although the nobles and officials are very greedy, they all cherish their lives without exception. In these many attacks, no one has been able to escape from the hands of the Black Knights. Therefore, when the nobles and officials shrink their forces to protect themselves, the goal of Zero and the Black Knight Order has become very clear. Veretta quickly followed Ray Minkai's train of thought. Yes, Veretta, do you remember the memory loss you suffered in the Shinjuku incident? Ray Minkai turned his head and looked at the brown beauty. Shinjuku incident? Ray Minkai didn't mention it. But as soon as he mentioned the Shinjuku incident, Veretta's sense of shame immediately rose, making her furious. Yes, at that time, his memory was so blurry that he couldn't remember it clearly. "Kay, have you found a clue?" Realizing that Ray Minkai wouldn't bring up the Shinjuku incident for no reason, Veretta couldn't help but feel a sense of anticipation. "Yes, I just have some ideas." Ray Minkai nodded, but he didn't say it immediately. Instead, he gave an answer that Veretta was looking forward to. "My idea is not enough to prove everything. Therefore, I need more evidence. Veretta, if you can get in touch with Jeremiah Ching. No, it should be Jeremiah Godebald now. Perhaps my idea will be proven faster." In the face of Ray Minkai's statement, Veretta nodded and said very understandingly, "Yes. Then, after this operation, I will try to communicate with Jeremiah and let him come in person to communicate with you." "Yes, I'm counting on you." Not long after, the convoy drove off the ring road and came to a large remote warehouse on the edge of the concession. Although this warehouse looked very remote and uninhabited, when the convoy approached, a car suddenly rushed out from both sides of the road and blocked the road to the warehouse. This is the warehouse group under the name of Earl Augustus. Please inform your unit. After the convoy was forced to stop by the two cars, a middle-aged man also came out of the car and shouted at the convoy with a rather imposing manner. "Augustus?" Ray Minkai turned his gaze to Veretta. Augustus is one of the supervisors in charge of the logistics of the 11th District. So there are indeed many large warehouses under his name. Veretta's answer made Ray Minkai understand how hard the bone he was about to bite was. Even so, Ray Minkai still stood up from his seat, picked up the microphone in one hand, and said in a deep voice, "The convoy has been intercepted. Everyone act immediately. Attack the warehouse as fast as possible. Control all the personnel, and check how many contraband are hidden in the warehouse one by one." "Yes, your lord." Under Ray Minkai's order, the soldiers who had been ready immediately rushed out of the car and quickly controlled the middle-aged man who was still shouting at the convoy. Then, soldiers with live ammunition rushed into the warehouse door and pressed all the people who did not react to the situation to the ground. Who are you?" "This is the property under the name of Earl Augustus. Who gave you the right to violate the dignity of the sacred and noble nobles?" Before the middle-aged man who was controlled by the soldiers could finish speaking, Veretta, who had just walked out of the command vehicle, stepped forward and gave him a hard slap. Looking at the middle-aged man who was shouting with the backing behind him, but now only had a shocked expression, Veretta suddenly felt a trace of pleasure in her heart and finally understood. What should she do? As one of the few female knights in the Britannia army, Veretta had the lofty goal of becoming a noble. Otherwise, she would not have joined the Pure Blood faction and become the right-hand man of Jeremiah, who was still the border earl at that time. However, after the incident with Orange, Veretta had to admit that her backer, Bordremia, who was at the border, had been defeated after a short period of glory. Since then, she had to bear the shame of being called Orange, and the Pure Blood faction was unable to recover from this setback and fell into a slump. Therefore, when Cornelius summoned her, Veretta chose to join this new department without hesitation. Now, she seemed to have seen hope, the hope of becoming a noble. "Earl Augustus, if there is a chance, I will visit him. But I'm afraid you can no longer serve your earl." Wearing a headset, Ray Minkai listened to the report of the soldiers who had taken control of the warehouse and began to count the goods while walking in front of the middle-aged man with a trace of ridicule on his lips and said coldly, Who are you? Who gave you the courage to intrude into Augustus? Pah! This time, Veretta did not make a move, but the soldier who was controlling the middle-aged man waved his fist, and suddenly the middle-aged man's words were swallowed back into his stomach. Who am I? Hee. After tonight, you will know, and your master will know too. Ray Minkai glanced at the middle-aged man faintly, then turned around and walked into the warehouse with Veretta. As the liquidation work progressed, boxes of 12 red bottles were moved to the open space at the entrance of the warehouse by the original staff of the warehouse. Illegal drugs refrain. There are actually so many of them. Standing beside Ray Minkai, Veretta looked at the illegal drugs that had been piled up into a small mountain, and the boxes that were still being moved out by the staff in an endless stream. Humph, how ugly. Even if the nobles look down on Number, they will not treat Number as a person. Ray Minkai's voice gradually became cold. Although the relevant information was collected before, whether it was Ray Minkai or Veretta, they did not expect the number of illegal drugs hidden in this warehouse to be so many. At this time, a soldier ran forward and reported to Veretta in a low voice. "K, we receive a report that there seem to be some unidentified people wandering around near this warehouse. The soldiers are verifying the situation." "Oh, they are here? Veretta, tell the soldiers to withdraw. After that, let's prepare to greet our opponents." Lei Minkai nodded and said confidently, "Yes, your lord." At this time, on a hillside 1 kilometer away from the warehouse, there was a group of figures moving quickly. Their target should be the cluster of warehouses that was about 1 kilometer ahead. However, when they were not far away from the warehouse, the leading figure wearing a black helmet and a black cloak suddenly stopped. He raised his right hand and clenched it into a fist, signaling the people following behind him to stop. "What happened, Zero?" Among the people, a tall, honest-looking man came forward and asked, "Something is wrong." A dull voice came from the helmet. "Something is wrong?" The man was stunned, looked around, and said with some doubts, "I didn't find anything wrong. Too careless. Fan, as the leader, you must always be vigilant of the changes around you. Otherwise, your carelessness will lead to the destruction of the entire team." After Zero scolded the man, he looked around, then climbed up the ladder on the side of the house not far away. After looking at the area where the target warehouse was located for a while, he took out the communicator. "Karen, can you see the situation of the warehouse from there?" "Yes. Wait a moment." As soon as the voice fell, in the shadow of the building on the other side, a Glasgow painted in red turned on the infrared detector on its head and looked at the warehouse area as far as possible from the maximum detection distance. "Zero, it seems that they are carrying out loading and unloading operations. Those staff members are placing some goods in the open space in front of the warehouse." "Loading and unloading operations?" Karen's answer made Zero slightly stunned. He knew that their goal was a warehouse that stored illicit drugs and distributed them all over the world. According to common sense, such a warehouse should be as low-key as possible to avoid attracting attention and causing the matter to be exposed. But now it had become so high-profile that it was hard to believe. Could it be that their goal was wrong? Was the information collected wrong? Regarding this point, Zero denied it. Even if he suffered a crushing defeat in the battle with Cornelia in the Saitama area, it could not shake Zero's confidence in his ability to analyze information. Therefore, there was only one answer. "We have been one step ahead of us." Zero gritted his teeth, calmed down the unwillingness in his heart, and said in a deep voice, "Karen, Fan, cancel the operation. Let's retreat." "What? We are already at the door. Why don't we go in?" Among the team members, the impetuous and somewhat conceited Shinichiro Toshiro immediately complained loudly when he heard that they were going to retreat. "Tamashiro, shut up. Zero has his reasons for canceling the operation." Fan immediately stopped Shinichiro Tamashiro's muttering. After returning to his teammates, Zero said something that surprised the Black Knight Squad. "Yes, Black Knight Squad, listen up. I'm afraid we will have a new opponent in the future." Chapter 21. Have you smelled something? In the night breeze, the silver mask reflected the moonlight. Ray Minkai looked at the busy crowd below with a faint smile. Then I'll send someone to chase after them, Veretta said. Ray Minkai shook his head and raised his hand to stop Veretta. No, there's no need. Today is just a greeting. We will have many chances to fight against the Black Knight Regiment in the future. Ray Minkai lowered his head and looked at the middle-aged man who was detained by the soldiers. He looked at the boxes of illegal drugs being moved to the empty space in front of the warehouse. His face was ashen. Today's results are enough to be considered a good start. Veretta did not understand Ray Minkai's meaning. However, after thinking for a while, she felt that she understood, but she could not explain why. Looking at Veretta's beautiful face, Ray Minkai faintly smiled with his slender eyebrows slightly furrowed. Veretta, it's about time. Pack up and send a message to the governor. Just say that the mission is complete. Yes. The first mission of Department Q was completed very well. Although they met the Black Knight Regiment led by Zero, as predicted, the results were enough to provide Cornelia with a satisfactory answer. The next day, Cornelia, who had just arrived at the government office, was blocked by a group of nobles. The reason was obvious, especially when Cornelia saw the amiable-looking middle-aged man standing in front of the nobles. She had already guessed the purpose of these people's visit. Count Augustus, why did you bring people to block the governor's way? The captain of the guards, Gilbert, took a step forward and stopped in front of Cornelia as he scolded. However, in the next moment, Cornelia raised her hand and patted Gilbert's shoulder. She stared at Count Augustus and said, Count, if there is anything, you can follow me back to the office to discuss in detail. Such an abrupt action is against the nobility of the Britannia Empire. Cornelia's words immediately caused the nobles who were blocking the door to look at each other in dismay. They subconsciously took a few steps back and made way for Cornelia. As the leader, Augustus's expression did not change. He still maintained the attitude of a good old man. He slightly leaned to the side and made way. The governor is right. It's my fault. A small conflict was resolved. However, an even greater conflict had crossed the red line that was about to erupt. Speak, Count, and everyone, why have you come here today? After returning to the office, Cornelia raised her hand and had all the attendants except for Gilbert and her adjutant, Dalton, leave the office. Then, he sat down and calmly waited for Count Augustus to speak. Governor, may I ask if Department Q was established by the governor himself? Augustus didn't speak. Instead, a small noble standing in the crowd stepped out and asked after bowing to Cornelia. Yes. I ordered it. Is there a problem? Cornelia's answer was very straightforward. Cornelia's straightforwardness caused the nobles to be at a loss of what to do. In the communication between these nobles, everything was usually accompanied by wrangling. Even when the late third Prince Clovis interacted with nobles like them, it was the same. However, Cornelia was so straightforward and frankly admitted that she was the one who ordered the establishment of Department Q. Then, what was the function of Department Q? Another middle-aged man, wearing a white noble's attire and a series of medals on his left chest, asked Cornelia with an arrogant expression. Upon seeing this person, Cornelia immediately recognized him. No, it should be the family background behind this person. It was the famous Tyrannus family with outstanding military achievements. However, this middle-aged man in front of her was the most useless third son of this family, Ponduras K. Tyrannus. As the son of a famous family with outstanding military achievements, not only did he not go to the battlefield to kill the enemy, but he was also intoxicated in the world of sensual pleasures. All day long, he wore the medals that his parents fought for with their blood and sweat. He was just like a clown. Thinking of this, Cornelia couldn't help but snort coldly and said in a cold voice, Viscount Ponduras, Department Q's current duty is to deal with the Black Knight Order that openly rebelled against the Empire in the hostage kidnapping incident not long ago. Is there a problem? Black Knight Order? As soon as Cornelia's words left her mouth, it caused a lot of discussion among the nobles. During this period of time, The existence of the Black Knight Order made the nobles feel a fear that they had never experienced before. No matter how strict the defenses were, they would be breached by the mysterious Black Knight Order, leaving behind many corpses that were punished in the name of justice. In the midst of the discussion, Count Augustus slowly asked, "Governor, is it worth the trouble?" "Oh." The corner of Cornelia's mouth raised slightly, and she said indifferently, "Whether it's worth it or not, it's not up to me to decide." According to the reports gathered after the multiple attacks, the Black Knight Order's goal is clear and stable. Cornelia opened the drawer of her desk, took out a document, and placed it on the table. She said word by word, "This is the first mission that Department Q completed last night. I wonder if anyone is interested in reading it?" As soon as last night was mentioned, the nobles all looked at Augustus. Whether it was Cornelia, Augustus, or even themselves, they all knew that they were just supporting characters. Today's main characters could only be Cornelia and Count Augustus. "Your Highness, what do you mean by this?" Count Augustus said slowly, "The private property of the Empire's nobles should be protected by the Empire's laws. Why does the Governor's Department Q dare to break into the private property of the nobles and trample on the Empire's laws?" Empire's laws. As soon as she heard this word, Cornelia laughed instead of being angry. "Count, you must be joking. How can a warehouse that hides a large number of illegal drugs be protected by the Empire's laws? I wonder if Count Augustus can explain to me which part of the Empire's laws, which part of the law states that illegal drugs are protected by the Empire's laws." Cornelia's expression quickly turned cold, making the nobles take a step back subconsciously. It wasn't until just now that these nobles realized that Cornelia Alive Britannia, the Empire's princess who galloped on the battlefield, wasn't what they imagined, a weak woman who stayed in the back and ascended to the legendary realm with the help of the Night Guards. Earl Augustus also gradually lost his benevolent face and became more and more ferocious. However, just as he was about to explode, he suddenly calmed down. "Governor is right. It's my lack of discipline that allowed my subordinates to take advantage of a loophole and almost caused a disaster. No matter how the governor punishes me, I, Augustus J. Augustus, have no complaints." Count Augustus's performance made Cornelia murderous, but there was nothing she could do. Although Ray Minkai led Department Q to seize a large number of illegal drugs, it couldn't become the key evidence to bring down these crazy, blood-sucking nobles entrenched in the 11th District. Well, thank you very much for Count Augustus's deep sense of justice. Let's call it a day. I'll send the results to Count Augustus's mansion. Yes, I've offended you today. Please forgive me, Governor. In the future, I ask the Governor to move forward hand in hand with us for the stability and prosperity of the 11th District. After a confrontation, both sides made concessions. Looking at the back of Count Augustus leading many nobles out of the government hall, Cornelia's face became colder and colder. If she rashly handed over the 11th District to Euphemia now, she was afraid that it wouldn't be a good thing. Cornelia was very clear about her sister Euphemia's personality, but she knew that it was difficult for Euphemia to deal with these nobles who were already a pain in the ass. Dalton, in the name of the Governor, praise Department Q and hope that they will continue to work hard. In addition, if the mission requires it, you can request to cooperate with the personal guards. Adjutant Dalton slightly bowed and replied, "Yes, Your Highness." The praise from the governor's mansion was quickly passed to Ray Minkai and the others. "Wow, it seems that the governor thinks highly of you." Looking at the reward sent in the name of the governor's mansion, Royd looked at the calm Ray Minkai in surprise. Ray Minkai walked to the table, raised his hand to pick up the champagne placed in the ice water, shook it, and smiled. "This isn't a prize. Royd, this is a death sentence." "Death sentence?" Sachel blinked and asked with some confusion, "Why do you say that?" Ray Minkai chuckled, unscrewed the cork of the champagne, poured the wine into the glass, and looked at Veretta. "Veretta, you say it." "Yes." Veretta nodded, took a deep breath, and slowly said, "This morning, Count Augustus led many nobles to block Governor Cornelia and her party at the entrance of the government office. Then, in the governor's office, Governor Cornelia and Count Augustus had a small conflict. The result was that Count Augustus compromised and gave away these prizes. Oh, if that was the case, then this was really a death sentence. Kay, it seems that your new job isn't a good thing. Royd, who understood the situation, gradually had a playful smile on his face. He and Sachel knew about Ray Minkai's past, as well as the reason for Gon's death. Now that the situation was developing, it was unknowingly moving in a certain direction. Not a good thing? Not necessarily. For me, it's a very good job. Ray Minkai raised his glass and drank the wine, pausing between each word as he spoke. Chapter 23. Move out. Move out. Move out again. With Cornelia's acquiescence, under the leadership of Ray Minkai, in the first battle, with the defeat of Count Augustus as the announcement of its birth, Department Q attacked everywhere. They captured all the prey they targeted, tore apart the crimes that the prey wanted to hide, and announced them through the news channels controlled by Cornelia. For a time, the momentum of Department Q overwhelmed the momentum established by the Black Knight Regiment not long ago and replaced it as the hero in the hearts of many honorary Britannians. Of course, this was just the thought of most honorary Britannians. For other honorary Britannians who still retained the idea of restoring their country, and 11 who could only struggle to survive in the slums, the existence of Department Q was just the pawns of those nobles. In fact, Ray Minkai did not deny or admit this statement. In the hearts of insiders, Department Q was indeed a pawns. It was established by the new governor, Cornelia, to clean up the parasites and viruses in District 11. As the momentum of Department Q became more and more vast, the conflicts between them and the Black Knight Regiment began to become more frequent. In the past week, Department Q had encountered the Black Knight Regiment at least 3 times. When they jointly carried out operations against the same target, there were records of encounters and battles. In the battles, Department Q and the Black Knight Regiment each had their own victories and defeats. Perhaps out of caution, both sides only knew when to stop and did not engage in more intense conflicts or even fight to the death. Okay, this is the latest information. Veretta, who was already familiar with the assistant's work, sent a sorted-out piece of information to Ray Minkai, as usual. But in the next moment, Veretta looked at Ray Minkai, who had already changed into a driver's suit, in surprise. "Okay, what are you doing?" It's time to move out. Veretta, if you continue to stay in the office or in the command vehicle, I'm afraid Royd will be angry. Ray Minkai smiled and said mischievously. Before Ray Minkai finished speaking, Royd's voice came from outside the door. Yes. If Sir Kay forgot that he was the test pilot for Lancelot, I would be happy to let our knight remember. Following the ever-off-key voice, Royd's cynical smiling face peeked in from outside the door. Royd, you came at the right time. We can use Lancelot for the next mission. Ray Minkai nodded and took the document from Veretta's hand. He patted the document and said, "Oh, that would be great." Lancelot's condition had been adjusted to the most perfect state. Royd clapped his hands when he heard that Lancelot could once again participate in a real battle. However, Ray Minkai's next sentence made Royd speechless for a while. Really? But why did Lancelot's cherry stone suddenly lose its activity during the hostage situation? Royd opened his mouth, and his face gradually revealed a distressed expression. You rascal. It's fine if you didn't mention it. The moment you mentioned it, I started to suspect if there was a problem with the design. There were actually 2 incidents where the cherry stone lost its activity for no reason. Royd kept on pulling his hair and shouting. Ray Minkai, who knew the reason, shook his head helplessly. He couldn't possibly say that Lancelot's cherry stone was actually eaten by a mysterious white cat, right? If he said that, Royd would probably be the first to fight Ray Minkai. All right. In fact, the cherry stone is also one of Lancelot's components. It's normal for it to be changed more frequently. Royd, the Lancelot that you created is 3 times better than Sunderland. Ray Minkai went forward and patted Royd's shoulder and comforted Royd. TSK. I didn't expect to be comforted by you. Roy glanced at Ray Mingkai and quickly pulled himself together. His usual cynical expression appeared on his face again. Yes, Lancelot was created by me in order to create the real nightmare. That's good. Let's start the mission. Department Q was dispatched once again. However, this time, their target wasn't in the concession area, but the slums around Shinjuku. We're in Shinjuku again. This time, the target is in Shinjuku. Cecil, who was checking the system, looked at the dilapidated scenery outside the window and immediately realized that they had left the concession area and entered the slums. Yes, Department Q seems to have received a tip-off that there will be an illegal drug trade in the slums of Shinjuku tonight. Royd, who was standing on the side, nodded and told him the information he just received from Ray Mingkai. Since it's the slums, why bring the nightmare? Cecil didn't understand. Other than Lancelot, there were 3 more Sunderland. That's necessary. Royd smiled mysteriously. At this time, Ray Mingkai stood in the command vehicle and looked at the 3 Sunderland pilots, including Veretta. Tonight's mission is a surprise attack mission. I believe everyone has already seen the mission's content. Yes, our next opponent is the Britannia Empire's army. Don't worry, these troops are just parasites on the Holy Britannia Empire. So, there's no need to hold back. Understand? Yes, your lord. The moment the needle pointed to 0, Department Q, hidden in the shadows, immediately moved. Under the leadership of the Nightmare team, led by Lancelot, the soldiers quickly rushed to the ruins that were 500 meters away from them. At this moment, the dark clouds in the sky gently drifted away, revealing the moon that was hidden behind them. The dreamy moonlight scattered on the ruins. Observation post. Be careful. The moment the moonlight scattered, Ray Mingkai's eyes lit up and immediately stopped everyone's movement through the communication device. Immediately after, the captain in charge of commanding the infantry raised his right hand and continued to make a few gestures. An infantry soldier with a sniper rifle stepped out of the crowd and quickly climbed up the building next to them. He began to move toward the observation post discovered by Ray Mingkai. Pooh! A gunshot that was suppressed by a silencer sounded. Move! Before the blood blossomed on the observation post dissipated, Lancelot was the first to rush out of the shadows and rush toward the ruins behind the observation post. The Sunderland, driven by Veretta, and the others followed closely behind. They covered the movement of the infantry and quickly rushed along the path opened by Lancelot. Enemy attack. Under the moonlight. The White Knight Lancelot was so dazzling and eye-catching. The observation post fell, but there were still hidden sentries hidden in the shadows. The moment Lancelot rushed out, the alarm went off. On top of the dilapidated high-rise buildings around them, soldiers with loaded guns appeared one after another. And in the ruins in front, 5 Sunderland rushed out from the shadows. In the blink of an eye, a storm of bullets rained down. Caught off guard, Department Q's infantry suffered casualties. But soon, under the cover of the Sunderland driven by Veretta and the others, the infantry finally retreated to cover and reorganized their formation. Lancelot, on the other hand, immediately rushed to the bunker and did not suffer any damage. But this posture made Ray Mingkai slowly squint his eyes. This is an ambush, Veretta shouted in surprise. No, this is not an ambush targeted at us. Ray Mingkai did not deny Veretta's words, but only corrected some of the content. Not targeted at us. We have already suffered casualties. The next moment, Veretta was suddenly shocked. Could it be targeted at the Black Knight Regiment? Yes. If they were targeting our Q division, they wouldn't have only sent 5 Sunderlands. Even though I'm just a nobody, Lancelot's performance is something that's real. Ray Mingkai's eyes flashed coldly. Lancelot's right hand reached behind his back, and the variable Vari's rifle appeared in his hand. Then, Lancelot raised his left arm, and the claw flew up. In the blink of an eye, the moment the claw broke through the wall of the building on the opposite side of the road, Lancelot's figure suddenly shot up into the sky and leaped across the street. Dang! The unique sound of the variable Vari's rifle firing continuously rang out. Powerful bullets tore through the night sky and swept across the street towards the Sunderland that was charging towards Veretta and the others. Boom, boom, boom. In an instant, amidst the explosions, the Sunderland that wanted to take advantage of the successful sneak attack and eliminate Department Q in one go paid a heavy price. They were either blown up on the spot or caught in the explosion and lost their limbs. The pilots had no choice but to activate the emergency escape system and abandon the aircraft. By the time Lancelot retracted his claw and landed on the street, other than Veretta's Sunderland, there was only the enemy's Sunderland left on the street. You can't just rely on a sneak attack to finish me off. As Ray Minkai spoke coldly, Lancelot raised a rifle in his hand and fired a bullet at the Sunderland. Boom! When the enemy's Sunderland exploded and turned into a fireball, Veretta and the others led the reorganized infantry and rushed out of cover. They swept through the enemy, hiding in the buildings on both sides of the street like a tornado. However, just as the operation was about to be completed, a strange movement suddenly came from the depths of the ruins. Boom! Accompanied by a loud explosion, a red-painted Glasgow broke through the wall and appeared in front of Ray Minkai and the others. Following behind Glasgow was a group of black-clothed figures. In front of these figures in black, a figure attracted Ray Minkai's attention. 0. Chapter 24. 0. It's the Black Knight Squad. As soon as the members of Department Q saw the faces of the group of people who had suddenly rushed into the battlefield, they immediately turned their muzzles and fired a volley of bullets. The Red Glasgow reacted quickly and used itself as a shield. After blocking the first wave of bullets for 0 and the Black Knight Squad, it covered them as they retreated behind cover not far away. Everyone, stop attacking. Ray Minkai ordered his men to stop attacking the Black Knight Squad. He then turned his attention to the hole that the Red Glasgow Squad had created. A few seconds later, Ray Minkai gave another order. Infantry, surround the hole. Sunderland, take up shooting positions. Everyone wait for my command. Veretta hesitated for a moment when she heard that the Black Knight Squad was going to be spared. However, she quickly regained her composure and followed the order. She led the Sunderland Squad to take up the best shooting positions. What made Veretta feel strange was that even though Ray Minkai had given the order to spare the Black Knight Squad, the Black Knight Squad, who should have fled, stayed where they were. From the looks of it, they still wanted to stay. What's going on? Whether it was Ray Minkai or Zero's actions, Veretta was confused. Soon, her confusion was cleared up by the sound of movement coming from the hole. Sunderland. The mechanical body that was slowly approaching from the shadow of the hole should be Sunderland. Even though it was painted black and had some external modifications, Veretta could still recognize it. Everyone attack. The next second, Ray Minkai shouted. In an instant, gunshots were heard. Whether it was the infantry submachine guns or Sunderland's firearms, they were all roaring. Bullets of various sizes whizzed through the air like a storm and enveloped the Sunderland that was slowly walking out of the hole. Ding, 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 ding. What happened next shocked everyone. The moment the bullet storm hit the black Sunderland, it was as if it hit an impenetrable wall, and it bounced off in all directions and futile. Veretta, fire the howitzers. Ray Minkai's voice was heard again. Veretta and the other Sunderland pilots immediately changed their shooting mode to the howitzers. The howitzers installed under the Sunderland's left arm folded forward and locked onto the target. Fire. Following Valletta's order, the 3 Sunderland mechs continued to fire their grenades without stopping for even a moment. Boom, boom, boom. In the midst of the gunshots, grenades hit the body of the Black Sunderland and set off a series of violent explosions. Fireballs, thick smoke dust in the blink of an eye. The Black Sunderland was engulfed. Did it work? Looking at the smoke coming out of the hole, everyone stopped attacking and cautiously waited for the next change. Other than Nightmare, everyone retreat to a distance of 300 meters. Following Ray Minkai's voice, Lancelot came to the front of Veretta's Sunderland and raised his rifle. "Okay, be careful. That strange Sunderland is not damaged." Ray Minkai's words shocked Veretta and the others. The smoke and dust dispersed. The Black Sunderland was still slowly driving out of the hole. When it was exposed under the moonlight, this strange Black Sunderland finally stopped. It was about 50 meters away from Lancelot, and they quietly looked at each other. Virum! The sound of high-speed wheels exploding broke the silence. The Black Sunderland took the lead and attacked Lancelot. Under the moonlight, two black shadows flew over and attacked Lancelot in a straight line. Lancelot raised his left hand, and the unique light of the energy shield flashed and blocked the black shadow. The black shadow that lost its speed revealed its true appearance. It was the Black Sunderland's hook. The hook that failed didn't seem to shake the Black Sunderland's will to attack. Instead, it gradually increased its speed. Attack! Cover Lancelot! When Veretta saw the battle, she immediately ordered to cover Lancelot. Da-da-da-da! The sound of bullets whistling through the air was heard again. However, just like the previous volley, the Sunderland's bullets didn't hit the Black Sunderland. It was as if they hit a wall, and the bullets ricocheted in all directions. Veretta, that's enough. You guys retreat too. Leave the rest to me. When he saw that the Sunderland's attacks were ineffective, Ray Minkai made a wise decision. But, retreat. This Sunderland is very strange. You guys can't handle it. As he spoke, Lancelot raised a rifle in his hand and fired 3 consecutive shots at the Black Sunderland. However, the Black Sunderland dodged all of the shots with strange maneuvers. However, Lei Minkai used this opportunity to discover some clues. The Black Sunderland that was fearless and could even ignore the bullets fired by normal firearms actually dodged the bullets fired by Lancelot's rifle. Can the rifle hurt you? Ray Minkai's eyes flashed. Lancelot's left hand reached to his waist, and a radiant vibrasword appeared in his hand. At this time, Lancelot's right hand was holding a variable-type Vari's rifle, and his left hand was holding a radiant vibrasword. With both weapons in hand, Lancelot instantly burst out with maximum speed and attacked the Black Sunderland like a gust of wind. Swoosh! The black figure attacked again, but it didn't make Lancelot retreat at all. This time, Ray Minkai, who had seen through the black figure's true identity, moved his left hand, and Lancelot swung the radiant vibrasword downward. The black figure was cut in half and fell to the ground. When he looked closely, he saw that it was the Black Sunderland's claw. Swoosh! As the wind blew, Lancelot's high-speed drive wheel changed direction. Lancelot twisted his body and swung the radiant vibrasword in his left hand backward. Gotcha! A crisp sound was heard, and the black figure fell to the ground. Sure enough, it was still the claw that was cut off. Whoosh! The wind blew, and a thick black figure shrouded Lancelot. F***, be careful. Swoosh! As soon as Veretta's warning was heard, a black figure suddenly swept across the night sky and sent the black figure above Lancelot flying. Ray Minkai looked back and saw that it was Red Glasgow from the Black Knight Regiment who came to the rescue. White Knight, how about we work together? In front of Red Glasgow, Zero said, you guys are the ones who created the Black Sunderland, right? Why do you want me to clean up your mess? Lei Minkai glanced at the Black Sunderland that was sent flying and crashed into a dilapidated building, burying it in the rubble. He snorted coldly. We caused it. Stop joking. White Knight, although we are enemies, our goal is the same, isn't it? Zero's voice was very calm, so calm that it made Ray Minkai feel uncomfortable. This was because he now understood who those ambushes were prepared for. He just didn't expect that the result would be Ray Minkai and the others. The same? What a joke. Zero, I still haven't settled the score with you for the crimes that you and those ridiculous knights have committed. Lei Minkai sneered and replied rudely. Weakness. The weakness of that strange Sunderland. How about it? Zero threw out his trump card. Weakness? You want to force me to work with you? No. I only hope to use this information in exchange for our departure. That's all. Zero's helmet shook a little. It was obvious that he had noticed the soldiers of Department Q that quietly surrounded this area. Oh, you don't want to work with me anymore? Zero. No. Right now, we, the Black Knight, are the weak. In order to survive, we are willing to pay a price in exchange for a chance to leave. Zero stepped forward and extended his right hand to Lancelot, slowly clenching his fist. Speak. Raymond Kai's answer was very simple. The cockpit. If the White Knight can penetrate the cockpit of that strange Sunderland, then it is very possible to stop it. As if to make Raymond Kai believe, Zero took 3 steps forward and said in a low voice, "When this strange Sunderland started, I saw with my own eyes that the pilot drank the illegal drug refrain. That's why he became like this." Illegal drug refrain? Is that so? Just as Ray Minkai was enlightened by Zero's reminder, the black Sunderland that was buried under the rubble exploded again. In the midst of the smoke and dust, the black Sunderland suddenly jumped out of the rubble and flew towards Lancelot from midair. Facing the attack from the sky, Lancelot once again threw the variable Vari's rifle aside and reached for his waist to pull out the radiation vibrasword. With both swords in hand, Lancelot did not retreat. Instead, he jumped on the spot and flew towards the black Sunderland. Swoosh! Swoosh! 2 sword flashes appeared, and the black Sunderland's hands and feet were cut off from top to bottom. Then, Lancelot raised his left hand, and the hook on his forearm suddenly flew up and stabbed into the black Sunderland's chest. Immediately after, Lancelot's left hand pulled downwards, and the black Sunderland was dragged along by the hook and fell heavily to the ground from midair. Clang! A cold light broke through the smoke and directly pierced into the cockpit of the black Sunderland. In the next moment, the black Sunderland seemed to have lost its color. After quickly turning from black to white, it went silent. As expected, looking at the strange appearance of the black Sunderland, Zero's eyes showed that she had expected it. Before Zero could speak, a huge figure accompanied by a gust of wind landed in front of Zero. Without looking, Zero knew that the person standing in front of her was Lancelot. Calm down. Zero raised her hand to stop the Black Knight squad that wanted to rush up to rescue the Black Sunderland and calmly looked up at Lancelot. The information is correct. Then, the deal is established. But now the Black Knight squad must leave here immediately. Raymond Kai's voice came from Lancelot's cockpit. Understood. Thank you very much. Also, in the depths of the cave, there will be something that your Q department, and even Cornelia, will be interested in. This is also to repay the kindness of letting the Black Knight squad go. Zero, who was at a disadvantage from beginning to end, did not show a trace of fear. Chapter 25. In a chemistry laboratory at Ashford College. As the first ray of sunlight shone into this chemistry laboratory, which was rarely used compared to other chemistry laboratories, a figure pushed open the door and walked in slowly with a red bottle. After the figure looked at the layout of the chemistry laboratory, he walked straight to the table on the right side of the laboratory that was full of experimental equipment. The moment the liquid in the red bottle was extracted by the figure, the busy chemical experiment began. Time passed quickly in the process of the focused experiment. From the first ray of sunlight to the middle of the day, the analysis of the liquid in the red bottle had only just finished the preliminary stage. Oh, Leluxiu, I didn't expect you to do chemistry experiments. At this time, as the laboratory door was pushed open, a cold voice sounded. CC, I'm just curious. After putting down the test tube in his hand, Leluxiu turned his head and looked at the witch who walked into the laboratory. Curious? Yes. No matter who it is, after seeing the Sunderland, they will have the same curiosity. With her long green hair fluttering in the air, the witch walked to Leluxiu's side and looked at the test tubes filled with red and green liquid on the table with interest. Then, Leluxiu, what's the result? Did you find it? Leluxiu smiled self-deprecatingly and openly admitted his powerlessness. How is that possible? Although I've read relevant experimental knowledge from books, it's just knowledge, not experience. To understand what's in this bottle, in the end, we still need professionals to analyze it. C. Narrowed his eyes and looked at the red bottle in Leluxiu's hand for a while. He then turned his head and asked Leluxiu, do you want those people to help you? How is that possible? They're just soldiers. They can't do this kind of professional knowledge. Leluxiu snorted and put the red bottle on the table. He began to clean up the test tubes and poured the liquid in them into an iron bucket on the side. Then, where are the professionals you mentioned? Sisi sat down on the table and asked while watching Leluxiu pack up. Not now, but soon. They will deliver themselves to us. Leluxiu casually took the alcohol lamp that was placed on another table and turned it on. Then, he poured more than half a bottle into the iron bucket that was filled with red and green liquid. And then, before Leluxiu could light the match, suddenly snatched the match from Leluxiu's hand. Do you want to die? Lulu Xiao. Looked down at the match and then looked at Lelouch mockingly. As expected, you lack experience in certain matters. The chemistry lab is not a place where you can light a fire whenever you want. Especially what was in the iron bucket. Don't you know? Leluxiu stared blankly for a moment before a bitter smile appeared on his face. I'm sorry. I was thinking about something just now. A few minutes later, on the rooftop of the teaching building, Lelouch and Cece quietly looked at the iron barrel that was burning fiercely. Lelouch, the storm has begun. Cece's voice sounded faintly in the breeze. Yes, it had begun. But now, the one who should be troubled is not me, but Cornelia. Leluxiu raised his head and looked in the direction of Shinjuku. Yes, Cornelia was more troubled than Leluxiu when it came to illegal drugs. Cornelia, who originally thought that the illegal drugs were just a type of psychotropic drug, could no longer sit still after receiving the latest report from Department Q. She led her personal guards to Shinjuku again, to the area where Ray Minkai and the others fought last night. In this area that was heavily surrounded by soldiers, Cornelia brought the captain of her personal guards, Gilbert, and her adjutant, Dalton, to Ray Minkai and Royd. Behind Ray Minkai and Royd was the wreckage of the Black Sunderland that they successfully killed last night with the information provided by Zero. This is the strange Sunderland that you're talking about? Cornelia glanced at Ray Minkai and Royd, then turned to look at the White Sunderland. Yes, Governor General. In last night's battle, after it was defeated by Lancelot, it became like this. Royd stopped smiling and looked at things with a serious expression, which was rare for him. Like this? Is it petrified? Cornelia furrowed her brows. Just as she was about to walk forward and touch Sunderland's remains, Gilbert took a big stride forward and blocked her path. Governor General, be careful. We don't know if there are other problems with this Sunderland. The loyal Gilbert had a serious expression and looked sharply at Royd. Why are you looking at me? This thing is already dead. No matter how you look at it, it is already dead. Royd shrugged and took a step forward. He reached out to touch the Sunderland as he spoke. Yes, Governor General, after I drove Lancelot to kill it, this Sunderland has fallen into a state similar to petrification. Look here. Ray Minkai took over Royd's topic and pointed at a spot near the ground below the wreckage. Cornelia and the others looked at where Ray Minkai pointed and found a gap. Judging from the traces left on the surface, it seemed that someone had knocked off a piece of it. Governor General, please look. This is a sample knocked off from above. Royd took a sealed, transparent bag from Sahil and passed it to Gilbert. Gilbert checked it a few times. After confirming that there were no mistakes, he passed it to Cornelia. This is really stone. Cornelia touched the sample through the bag and looked at the wreckage of Sunderland in shock. If someone had told Cornelia that the Sunderland equipped by the Empire was made of stone before today, Cornelia would have been the first to order the execution. However, the scene before her eyes made Cornelia believe that after the Sunderland was killed, it strangely turned from metal to stone. After Cornelia returned the transparent bag to Sahil, she looked at Royd and asked, "Did you find out what happened?" "We did not find anything. The only thing we know is that the strange change in Sunderland is most likely related to illegal drugs." Royd gave Ray Minkai a look. Governor General, during last night's battle, we encountered the Black Knight Regiment and obtained some information from Zero. The reason why Sunderland became like this is because the knight who piloted it drank a bottle of illegal drugs before entering Sunderland. Ray Minkai calmly told him the information he obtained from Zero. "Zero, You encountered the Black Knight Regiment last night? Dalton, who had been silent all this while, asked. Yes. Ray Minkai nodded and continued. In fact, when we entered this area, we encountered an ambush. The target of this ambush should have been the Black Knight Regiment. In the end, we caught up to them. Ambush. Then, when Department Q was dealing with the ambush, the Black Knight Regiment took the opportunity to enter the cave and discovered this Sunderland. Cornelia had already noticed that there were many people moving things in and out of the cave. Moreover, as Ray Minkai's assistant, Veretta, was standing in front of the cave, directing the people moving things. Yes, after the battle, we found some very strange medicines in the depths of the cave. Ray Minkai frowned, but he couldn't find a suitable word to explain what they found. Let me explain. Royd pushed up his glasses. Although we only did a rough inspection, we can come to a conclusion. Royd's words attracted the attention of Cornelia and the others. Although the inspection results show that the illegal drugs found in the depths of the cave are similar to the illegal drugs we have been pursuing before, there are some ingredients that we can't analyze at the moment. Couldn't analyze? Cornelia asked. Yes. With our current technical means, we can barely detect it, but we can analyze it. Therefore, we don't know anything about its structure and function. Royd spread out his hands and said helplessly, in the end, I'm just a rookie when it comes to chemical analysis. If necessary, I hope the governor can transfer a group of skilled chemical technicians from the country to analyze these samples. I understand. After Cornelia nodded, she looked back at Ray Minkai and said, although we didn't see the report of the encounter between Department Q and the Black Knight Regiment, we'll ignore it this time. Yes. Thank you, Governor. Ray Minkai just thanked her, but he was stopped by Cornelia. Okay, next, I'll lead the guards to the sea and cut off the channel of illegal drugs flowing into Area 11. Department Q's actions will be the same. Yes, Governor. Cornelia left. After giving out the orders, Cornelia left Shinjuku with her personal guards and returned to the settlement. She began to make arrangements for the next step of the operation. A few days later, Ray Minkai and the others, who had cleaned up the broken battlefield and returned to the concession, received a message before they could breathe a sigh of relief. Cornelia took the guards to battle. Now, Area 11 was temporarily led by Deputy Governor Euphemia Libertania. I'm afraid the Deputy Governor is going to have a hard time. After all, the powerful governor is going to battle. After Royd finally got rid of the investigation work that he hated very much, he happily inspected Lancelot while saying, don't worry about it. Royd, how can you say that? Seahill, who was sitting next to him, frowned and glanced at Royd. I didn't notice. Royd let out a strange cry and glanced at Lei Minkai, who was signing the document, intentionally or unintentionally. Ahem. Royd, are you free now? Veretta, who was still holding a pile of documents in her arms, coughed softly and attracted Royd's attention, lest he disturb Ray Minkai's work. Originally, Veretta suggested to Ray Minkai to return to the independent office to work. Who knew? Ray Minkai, on the grounds that he was not used to the office, ran back to the special mission station, pulled a table next to Lancelot, and started working. This situation not only gave Veretta a headache, but also opened the eyes of Royd and the others. Veretta, beautiful lady, is there anything I can help you with? Royd blinked and said with a smile, can you help me adjust Sunderland? I'm afraid my Sunderland won't be able to meet the needs of future battles. Veretta remembered the situation when they fought against Black Sunderland. Whether it was machine guns or howitzers, none of Sunderland's main equipment could cause any damage. If this continued, Veretta might become a powerless bystander, watching Lancelot fight alone on the front line. Adjust? Royd rolled his eyes, shook his head, and sighed. Although I can help you adjust Sunderland, Sunderland potential is there. No matter how much I adjust it, I'm afraid it won't be able to meet your needs. What? Veretta was stunned, and she didn't know what to do. At this time, Ray Minkai just finished signing the last document. He put down the pen and looked up at Royd. Royd, I remember that Lancelot should have a few spare parts. What? You can't do that. F***, let me tell you, those are Lancelot's spare parts. The budget is all there. As soon as Lloyd heard that Lei Mingkai was thinking about the spare parts, he immediately jumped up and said. However, Lei Mingkai said confidently, Lloyd, I'm not going to give you a chance. Lancelot will eventually mass-produce it. Instead of collecting data when the time comes, why don't we follow Lancelot's standards and start mass production experiments in advance? Facing Lei Mingkai's words that made him speechless, Lloyd was silent. See here, who was sitting at the side, rolled his eyes and seemed to think that Lei Mingkai's suggestion was quite feasible. Based on the combat data that Lancelot had collected so far, this was undoubtedly the best result in a real battle. But the only problem was with the pilot. It was important to note that not every pilot was like Lei Mingkai, who could still be alive and kicking even after a few days, even if there were a few holes in his body. Therefore, when mass production was carried out, it was necessary to collect balanced data. Otherwise, if they blindly pursued the strength of Lei Mingkai when he piloted Lancelot, it would be a dead end. After thinking about it, Sihir reached out and poked Royd's waist. Royd, I think Lei Mingkai's suggestion is quite good. Royd's mouth twitched. He looked at his assistant, Sihir, and then looked at Lei Mingkai, who was calm and seemed particularly confident. In the end, Royd nodded. Okay, but F***, there are only a few spare parts. If something happens to Lancelot again, you have to be mentally prepared. However, a sudden voice interrupted everyone's discussion. If it's possible, I can bear the cost of this knight's body. How about it? Everyone turned their heads and saw a young girl dressed in a dignified and luxurious white robe. She had soft pink hair and a beautiful face. She was escorted by her entourage as she walked into the Special Task Force's encampment from the outside. Her Royal Highness. Royd and others were stunned and immediately stepped forward and saluted. Greetings, Deputy Governor. Everyone please rise. The third princess, the Deputy Governor of District 11, Euphemia smiled slightly and motioned for everyone to get up. Then she looked at Lei Mingkai. Okay, I've heard about it. Can I do something for Department Q? Lei Mingkai looked at the princess' smiling face and couldn't help but be in a trance. He raised his right hand, stroked his chest, and said respectfully, Of course, Her Royal Highness. Chapter 26. It was still the same familiar street. It was still the same familiar people. The only difference was that around the streets, there were pairs of eyes in the corners. Some were alert, some were scrutinizing, and some were casually observing the surroundings, observing the people coming and going. And the ultimate goal of these gazes was the man and woman strolling on the street, observing how the people around them spent the day. UFFI, come here. Lei Mingkai's gaze seemed to inadvertently glance at the bakery on the right, then took 2 ice creams and returned to Euphemia's side. This is ice cream. Euphemia saw the ice cream in Lei Mingkai's hand and said with some surprise, You haven't eaten it before? Lei Mingkai blinked, a little surprised by Euphemia's surprise. Well, I've eaten one, but my etiquette teacher doesn't allow me to eat ice cream often, saying that it will affect my posture. After Euphemia thanked him, she reached out and took the ice cream. She carefully tasted it, and a sweet happiness appeared on her face. Seeing Euphemia, who had always been dignified and elegant, reveal an expression like an ordinary girl, Lei Mingkai couldn't help but smile. Indeed, frequent and large amounts of ice cream would indeed lead to tooth decay and obesity. In order to ensure the dignity and elegance of the princesses, it was natural for the court etiquette teacher to make such a request. But today, let Euphemia temporarily get rid of her identity as a princess and experience an ordinary girl's day. Kay, you're not eating? Noticing that Lei Mingkai seemed to be distracted, Euphemia softly called out, Oh, I'm just thinking about something. Nothing. UFFI. Lei Mingkai shook his head, smiled at Euphemia, and asked, By the way, where do you want to go today? If it's outside the concession, there's nothing I can do. Euphemia nodded. Well, I know. Because of the last incident, I can't leave the concession for the time being. So, I want to go to the factory today to take a look. Factory? Ray Minkai frowned. He thought about it and finally agreed with Euphemia's idea. After all, compared to the dilapidated city outside the concession, the factory area was still much safer, even with a large number of Britannians coming in and out to work. After making the decision, Lei Minkai didn't waste any more time. After secretly notifying the members of Department Q who were guarding the surroundings, he walked toward the factory area with Euphemia. At this moment, it was lunch break. The workers working in the factory area were reminded by the lunch break bell. They walked out of the factory in groups and rushed to the nearby cafeteria. The sight of the sea of people surprised Euphemia, who had never seen such a scene before. "Okay, so many people. Are they all workers?" Ray Minkai looked around and found that the agents of Department Q were already in position. After looking around vigilantly, he nodded. "Yes." This factory area is mainly responsible for the production of light textile industrial products, so the recruits are mainly Britannians. As Ray Minkai said, he took Euphemia's small hand and led her to a quieter observation deck to avoid being hit by more and more people. "Let's do it here. UFFI. There are more and more people below." Euphemia didn't say anything. She just looked at Ray Minkai's hand. Ray Minkai was still holding her small hand. When he saw Euphemia's gaze, Ray Minkai was stunned for a moment. Then he quickly let go of Euphemia's small hand and laughed. "Sorry, I forgot." But Euphemia didn't care about it. Instead, she showed a gentle smile. "No, don't worry. This is the first time I've experienced this feeling." "'Kay." That gentle smile made Ray Minkai absent-minded for a moment. It was as if some indescribable feelings were about to surge out of his chest. But in the next moment, Ray Minkai suppressed the surge with his willpower and calmly nodded. Moreover, in this delicate moment, a movement inadvertently saved Ray Minkai. "That is, what's going on?" Euphemia's doubtful gaze went past Ray Minkai and fell on the circle of people not far away. "It seems like they're fighting." When Silver Mask turned to face the crowd, Lei Minkai also heard the curses that breeze brought to his ears. "Not good. Euphemia had just blurted out these words when she suddenly stopped speaking. Because she finally remembered her identity, it wasn't suitable for her to rashly step forward. But Ray Minkai had another way. He secretly gestured to the agents of Department Q who were watching over here. The agents nodded and turned to leave. Using the authority of Department Q, the police in charge of the security of the factory area were dispatched. Sure enough, in less than 3 minutes, 3 Glasgow helicopters painted in the style of the police rushed out from the other side of the factory with nearly 100 armed police armed with explosion-proof equipment. Bang! 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 The moment several large tear gas bombs shot out by the Glasgow helicopters landed in the crowd, the unbearable pungent gas was immediately released and quickly drowned the entire crowd. Then, armed with explosion-proof shields and batons, the police rushed into the smoke like a gust of wind. After dispersing or knocking down the crowd, they were dragged away by their teammates. Soon, the crowd of onlookers was dispersed, and the troublemakers were caught by the police. They were dragged out of the range of the tear gas and thrown to the other side of the street. "Do you want to go up and take a look?" UFFI. When Lei Minkai saw the agent who had just left to inform the police return, he gestured to him that someone wanted to see him. Or rather, he wanted to see the big shot who could make Department Q, who was at the peak of their power, personally come. After thinking for a while, Ray Minkai still shook his head. The answer was inevitable. As long as the person in charge here knew Euphemia's identity, then Euphemia's rare good mood would be shattered. Therefore, the agents of Department Q once again used their authority to burn the bridge after crossing the river. Ray Minkai couldn't help but find it funny when he saw the reluctance in the eyes of the person in charge when he left. After the agents confirmed that there was no one around to spy on the situation, the troublemakers were brought to Ray Minkai and Euphemia. How could you do this? Old man, are you okay?" Euphemia could not help but shout angrily when she saw the old man covered in dust, with a head full of white hair and bruises all over his face, being supported by the agents. With Euphemia's gentle temperament, it was rare for her to explode in anger. This also proved how vicious the other group of brawny men who were forced to the ground by the agents were. What happened? Ray Minkai looked at the injuries on the old man's body and turned to ask his subordinates. Sir, the cause of the incident should be because the old man wanted to get his son's salary back. Salary back? Ray Minkai paused for a moment. He didn't expect to witness a salary back in person, and it was an old man who was asking for his salary back. But seeing that the old man didn't respond to Euphemia's question, Ray Minkai knew that he wouldn't be able to get the details out of him. Therefore, Ray Minkai set his eyes on the brawny men. In order to save time, Ray Minkai signaled his subordinates with his eyes. His subordinates nodded in understanding and silently pulled the brawny men into the small forest not far away. A few minutes later, the subordinates walked out of the forest with a hint of unhappiness on their faces. What a coward! The agents all looked down on the brawny men who only knew how to bully the weak and do evil. Then, they explained the details of the incident. It turned out that the old man's son worked in the factory here, and he was also a middle-level manager. Although it was hard work, he was able to ensure the livelihood of his family. But he never expected that his son would inexplicably be infected with a banned drug called Refrain not long ago. Just half a month ago, his son lost all of his family's assets and also lost his job. Now, in order to get back the last few months of his son's salary, the old man had no choice but to come forward and ask for his salary. In the end, the situation in front of them happened. With the agent's explanation, the situation became clear. No matter how she called out, the old man couldn't respond. Euphemia raised her head and looked at Ray Minkai. Her eyes were so determined and so angry. She lived in the palace since she was a child. She had always lived in luxury and was carefully taken care of by the maids. Her Royal Highness never thought that there would be such an unfair thing in the world. I understand. As you wish, Your Highness. Ray Minkai didn't need to ask to know what the gentle third princess was thinking. Inform that guy, since he wants to see the big shot. Then he has to show his sincerity. Ray Minkai's words were brought to the head of security, who was still regretting. In an instant, the regret on his face turned into a dilemma. But soon he made a choice, because he knew that if he dared to refuse, his position would be terminated. As long as one wasn't an idiot, one would know that in the 11th District, Department Q was in the limelight. Standing behind Department Q was the second princess, Cornelia Britannia, who was known as the Witch. Half an hour later, accompanied by Department Q led by Ray Minkai, Euphemia, who appeared as the third princess and deputy governor, stood at the gate of the factory. There, dozens of people were kneeling. They were the people in charge of this factory. From top to bottom, I only have one question. Do you owe this old man's son his salary? Euphemia's face was cold, and she asked those people condescendingly. Your Royal Highness. Please listen to my explanation. When the fat pig-like man who was sweating profusely at the front tried to explain, Ray Minkai scolded him loudly. Shut up. What the deputy governor is asking now is not this. This, under Ray Minkai's terrifying momentum, the fat pig was stiff and his lips trembled as he nodded. Is that so? Then, the matter is clear. In the name of the third princess of the Britannia Empire, the deputy governor of the 11th District, Euphemia Britannia, I order that all factories in the area immediately conduct a financial inspection and pay back all the owed wages within a week. Otherwise, I will ban any factory that violates this order in the name of the deputy governor of the 11th District. With the full support of Ray Minkai and Department Q, the third princess, Euphemia Britannia, who had always been gentle, issued the first strict order since she arrived in the 11th District. Chapter 27. Euphemia's strict order was successfully carried out. Under the supervision of Department Q, no one dared to go against her orders. Even though Department Q had just been established not long ago, due to their previous achievements, None of the factory managers in this factory area dared to play tricks in the dark. Didn't they see that the nobles who stood behind them in the past all remained silent? But Euphemia couldn't be happy. As a member of the royal family, even if she was gentle by nature, she knew that some unspeakable things were hiding in the dark. "Okay, why?" Standing in the office, Euphemia silently watched the ambulance carrying the old man leave and asked the masked man standing next to her. Perhaps it was because of the silver mask. For the first time, Euphemia thought that if she could take off the silver mask at that time, it would be a great thing. At least, she could see if the face under the mask was as angry as she was now. No reason. It's just benefits. Under the silver mask, there was a calm face. Benefits? Just for benefits, an old man was forced to come here to ask for a salary and was beaten half to death? Euphemia shook her head. Her heart had not been able to calm down since she learned the truth. She, who had lived a luxurious life since she was a child, had never thought that humans would have such a difficult time surviving. Ray Minkai was silent for a while, then turned around, bowed slightly to Euphemia, and said, "Your Highness, please come with me. Some things must be seen with your own eyes to have a deeper understanding." Ray Minkai's statement made Euphemia's heart sink. It seemed that what Ray Minkai was going to let her witness was not a good thing. However, even so, Her Royal Highness nodded resolutely. "Good. Kay, let me see everything you have to show me." "Of course, Your Royal Highness." Ray Minkai responded in a deep voice. The sun set and the moon rose. When everyone thought that Her Royal Highness, who had been making a fuss all day, had returned to the governor's palace, the Royal Highness disguised herself as a member of Department Q and followed Ray Minkai to participate in the upcoming operation of Department Q. "Kay, I didn't expect you to bring the deputy governor along." Veretta, who was coordinating the operation team, said to Ray Minkai with a bitter smile. "No, it was just that the deputy governor wanted to see what kind of darkness existed in the land she was in charge of. Even if I don't agree, in the future, there will be someone who will let the deputy governor see it." Ray Minkai tightened the collar of his driving suit and said indifferently, "In order to ensure Euphemia's safety, she stayed in the command vehicle after the operation began. She would only leave the command vehicle after the operation was over and Department Q had taken control of the situation. It's time. Everyone, begin the operation." Ray Minkai glanced at the clock, then opened the comms and gave the order. Under the cover of the night, Department Q came out in full force once again. In the dim light, a group of nervous people were quickly moving the goods store in the basement out, one by one, into the trucks parked at the exit. "Quick, quick, quick. Those damn dogs seem to have discovered this place. We must evacuate from here as soon as possible." Among the crowd, a middle-aged man who looked like a leader waved his arms and shouted loudly, "Let's go." "But didn't those lackeys cause a huge ruckus in the factory area this afternoon? My neighbors are talking about this." The others didn't quite agree with his statement. After all, in those rumors, even the third princess ran to the factory area and gave a strict order to make those black-hearted Britannia bosses pay all the debts. "Idiot. What do you know? Do you know the origin of this matter? It was that old fart from Suzuki's family who went to ask for money and was beaten half to death by those black-hearted pig's dogs. Then, Department Q found out and caused this mess." The middle-aged man fiercely slapped the head of the person closest to him, spittle flying everywhere as he cursed loudly. "Suzuki, that bastard. Not only does he owe me money, but he also caused me such a big trouble." When things calmed down, boom! Before the middle-aged man could scold to his heart's content, a roar suddenly exploded, followed by a violent tremor. "What boom?" Another rumbling sound rang out. This time, it seemed to be even closer. "Quick, run. Don't care about those goods." The middle-aged man who finally reacted trembled all over and took the lead to turn and run in the opposite direction of the explosion. At the same time, he didn't forget to shout to remind his men. Walla, bang, boom, boom. With the sound of bottles being smashed and boxes being thrown on the ground, These outlaws who relied on selling illegal drugs in the past finally tasted the taste of impending doom. Boom! They didn't run far before the violent explosion swept over. Mixed in a violent shockwave, the rubble and debris swept the criminals who didn't have time to move to the ground in a short time, and the stench also filled this narrow space. Ta-ta-ta! Before the roar had completely dissipated, a series of messy but orderly footsteps came from afar into this narrow space that was ravaged by the explosion. Streaks of red light broke through the darkness amidst the flying dust and shone on the outlaws who had been knocked down by the rubble on the ground. Safe. All teams move separately according to the original plan. In the blink of an eye, heavily armed soldiers searched along the tunnel that was blasted open by the explosion in teams according to the original plan. Ta-ta-ta. Ta-ta-ta. The sound of gunfire also became the main theme of the soldiers' search for this stronghold that hid countless criminals. In the command vehicle, Euphemia's small face was tense, and her hands involuntarily crossed and clenched. She was waiting for Ray Minkai to send back the rule that it was safe. Lieutenant Governor, don't worry. 4K and Q Department. This is just a routine mission. Sai Shur, who was monitoring the data feedback, saw that Euphemia seemed to be a little nervous and subconsciously comforted her. Is that so? Euphemia lowered her gaze and nodded. Then, the news that Euphemia was waiting for finally came back. However, Raymond Kai's face did not look good. "Kay, are you hurt?" The words of concern almost blurted out, and Euphemia's eyes revealed a trace of nervousness. "No, Lieutenant Governor. There are some things here that I hope you could take a look at. But you must be prepared." Ray Minkai's voice was low and hoarse, as if he was suppressing something. The puzzled Euphemia was received by the soldiers sent by Ray Minkai and came to Ray Minkai's side from another clean tunnel. When Euphemia followed Ray Minkai's instructions and looked at the warehouse behind the door behind him, she was frightened by the horrifying scene in front of her and took a few steps back. It was not until Ray Minkai supported her that she slowly woke up from the shock and looked back at Ray Minkai. "It's true, Your Highness." Ray Minkai gave a look to his subordinate beside him. His subordinate then brought a red bottle and a middle-aged man with a skinny face and a sloppy appearance. He didn't look like a human at all. "Your Highness, this is the illegal drug refrain that has spread among 11. Ray Minkai took the red bottle and showed it to Euphemia while saying, "This is refrain?" "Yes, Your Highness. Its power." Ray Minkai was silent for a moment and finally sighed. "Your Highness, please take a look at it with your own eyes." Then, Ray Minkai ordered people to bring the middle-aged man over. "What is this?" This is a miracle. This is a miracle. This is a miracle that belongs to me. Give it to me. I beg you, give it to me." Seeing the red bottle in Ray Minkai's hand, the skinny middle-aged man actually exerted a great force and struggled to break free, trying to snatch the red bottle from Ray Minkai's hand. "Calm down," Ray Minkai shouted, suppressing the middle-aged man. Then, Ray Minkai shook the red bottle in front of him and said slowly, "As long as you answer my question, it is yours." Good, good, good. Ask me. Ask me. I'll tell you anything you ask. Even if you want my life, I'll give it to you. I only want my miracle." The middle-aged man's crazy obsession with refrain made Euphemia unable to bear to close her eyes. "Your Highness, don't close your eyes. This is the truth of District 11. Ray Minkai shouted, forcing Euphemia to open her eyes and face everything in front of her. "Who are you? What are you doing here?" Ray Minkai shook the red bottle again. The sound of the liquid in the bottle made the middle-aged man's eyes widen, and he subconsciously swallowed several times. I am Suzuki Taro. I came here to buy a miracle. Look, I have money." Fortunately, that old fart went to ask for his salary and was beaten half to death and finally lay in hospital. But this is also good. Anyway, he's going to die. I'll simply take out the medical expenses and use it to buy my miracle. As he spoke, the middle-aged man's skinny face showed a burst of complacency, and the content of his words made Euphemia angry again. Hey! Ray Minkai was stunned. The subordinates who were holding the middle-aged man were stunned. Don't know when Euphemia, with a face full of anger, had a broken bottle in her hand. And a few seconds ago, Euphemia, who burst out with a roar, snatched the red bottle from Ray Minkai's hand and smashed it on the middle-aged man's head. Unfilial son, drown in your miracles. Her Royal Highness, who was exuding a cold aura, shouted angrily. Chapter 28. In the end, Euphemia didn't kill the middle-aged man and ordered him to be killed. Even though Euphemia had smashed its head with a bottle, it still crazily struggled to break free from her control. It licked the blood on its head like a dog, continuously licking the liquid on the ground. In fact, it was so crazy that it did not care even when its head was cut by the glass shards on the ground. Pot, fruit, fruit. Amidst the heavy breathing, indistinct murmurs could be heard. Looking at the beast like no, even worse than a beast, humanoid monster lying on the ground, Euphemia weakly let go of her hands and let the broken bottle fall to the ground. Lei Minkai, who was quick to react, saw Euphemia's body sway and immediately went forward to support this delicate-looking princess. At the same time, Ray Minkai gave a signal to his subordinates. After the middle-aged man was dragged away, Ray Minkai said apologetically, "Sorry, Your Highness, I've frightened you." Euphemia shook her head slowly. Although her voice was soft, it was strangely firm. She slowly said, "No, I don't want to see you again. Kay, don't blame yourself. In the end, I should be thanking you." "Thanking me?" Ray Minkai was slightly surprised. "Yes." Euphemia lowered her head and looked at Ray Minkai's right hand that was supporting her. She stretched out her left hand and grabbed it. She said with a bit of strength, "Thanks to you, I've seen the truth. This might be the truth that royal sister, the governor, didn't want me to see, but also wanted me to understand." Ray Minkai felt Euphemia's increasing strength and helplessly laughed. "In the end, you still let me be the bad guy?" "No. Kay, I'm thanking you from the bottom of my heart." Euphemia lightly pushed away Ray Minkai's right hand. She turned around and looked straight into Ray Minkai's eyes. She said word by word, "Believe me, Kay, this gratitude is real." Ray Minkai smiled and nodded solemnly. "Yes, I believe in Your Highness' intentions." Euphemia smiled and said seriously, "Now I want to talk to you, just the two of us." After saying that, Her Highness subconsciously looked at the world behind the door. There were more than 10 people who were immersed in their own hallucinations. Some of them kept saying that they wanted to go on a business trip and were determined to do something big. Some of them were half lying on the ground, looking lovingly at the empty ground in front of them. They raised their hands and gently touched the air, but their mouths were calling their children's names. Some of them raised their arms and shouted as they looked at the void with feverish gazes, chanting slogans from neon boards. Some of them had ferocious faces and murderous gazes as they held bamboo poles and forcefully stabbed the air in front of them. At the same time, they were muttering as if there was an enemy standing in the void in front of them who wanted to kill them at all costs. The more he looked, the more Euphemia couldn't bear to look at him. In the end, the Empress, who had finally calmed down, turned her head and looked at the masked knight standing beside her. "Kay, let's go back. This place is not suitable for talking." "As you wish, my princess." Royd, Sayer, Veretta, and the others who had sorted out the preliminary evaluation report left the command vehicle reasonably, leaving space for Ray Minkai and Euphemia. "Your Highness, have a cup of hot tea to calm down." Ray Minkai handed the boiled black tea to Euphemia. "Thank you. Kay, you forgot." Euphemia took the black tea and rolled her eyes at Ray Minkai. Ray Minkai was stunned for a moment before he smiled and said, "Yes, I forgot. UFFI." "Yes." Euphemia nodded with a straight face and took a small sip of the black tea. At this time, Ray Minkai knew that the main show was about to begin. "Kay, why are they addicted to that illusory world? So much so that they don't even care about their loved ones." No matter how Euphemia thought about it, She couldn't understand the thoughts of those who took illegal drugs, including the middle-aged man. Why? Ray Minkai asked back. He put the teacup on the table and leaned against the wall. He said slowly, because of the misfortune of reality. Misfortune? Euphemia muttered this word softly. Yes, misfortune. I believe, Euphemia, you still remember the Britannia Empire's attack on Japan and the establishment of District 11, right? Yes, I remember. Speaking of the establishment of District 11, Euphemia's face also showed a trace of unnaturalness. After all, as a kind-hearted empress, Her Highness didn't quite agree with the Britannia Empire's actions back then. Even if she knew that this was a war to control cherry stone and other important energy minerals. Yes, after the war ended, the name of Japan was removed and replaced by the insulting name District 11. Ray Minkai saw that Euphemia wanted to speak, so he raised his hand to signal Euphemia to calm down. Of course, from the standpoint of the Empire, this is just an organization set up for the convenience of management. But for the people of Japan, who had become slaves of their country overnight, this was nothing to be proud of. On the contrary, the more concise the Empire used numbers as a reference, the more it aroused their reverse psychology. Speaking of this, Ray Minkai sneered. In fact, even without the numerical designation, the reverse psychology of the Japanese wouldn't be that bad. But in the factories of the concession, aren't there many reputable Britannians working? Euphemia raised the doubts in her heart. Ha! They're just forced to make a living. Ray Minkai shook his head and gave an example. Suzuki, you have seen UFFI just now. Before he came into contact with illegal drugs, his income was enough to support his entire family. But why would he still come into contact with illegal drugs and be addicted to it? This time, it was Ray Minkai's turn to ask questions. Obviously, this question was not something that Euphemia could answer. Ray Minkai did not let Euphemia think for long and quickly announced the answer. UFFI. Do you remember during the day, when the managers were faced with their own mistakes, they showed ugly expressions? Under Ray Minkai's guidance, Euphemia recalled that even when facing her, the third princess of the Britannia Empire, in the face of conclusive evidence of their crimes, the factory owners still insisted that the reputable Britannians were just lowly and not worth mentioning. Even if they worked themselves to death, they died for the great Britannia Empire. This was glorious and sacred. This was the attitude of those factory owners towards the reputable Britannians. Thinking of this, Euphemia did not speak for a long time, because she knew that any words in the face of this fact, this reality, was so pale and powerless. Ray Minkai shook his head and sighed. Although they can bring food and clothing to their families, in fact, they suffer heavy, almost suffocating pressure. This pressure is like a huge rock that constantly accumulates on their shoulders until it's like a huge mountain that's pressing down on them, crushing them. Ray Minkai raised his hand and took the red bottle sample left on the command vehicle, put it on the table, and said jokingly, "In the end, redemption appeared. Even if this redemption will cost them their lives." Euphemia stared at the red bottle that had caused countless people to fall in love with it for a long time, and softly said, "Just like those people just now. Yes, just like them. UFFI. What you saw tonight is just a corner of the truth in District 11. Ray Minkai paused and then said, UFFI. You should remember when you invited me. I rejected you. Euphemia nodded and looked at Ray Minkai with some anger. Since I was young, you're the first person to reject me. Ray Minkai shook his head with a wry smile, pointed at the red bottle, and said solemnly, This is my answer. Then, Ray Minkai turned his head, looked straight into Euphemia's eyes, and said in a deep voice, UFFI. This world is so cruel. Utopia does not exist in this world. Yes, the world is so cruel. In just a blink of an eye, the life of the most important person was taken away. Euphemia's voice gradually became louder. But, even so, I still want to build a world where no one will lose the most important person. How? UFFI. Ray Minkai's voice changed from light to heavy and gradually became stern. How? Euphemia Libertania. Before today, you knew nothing about the truth of the 11th district. Before coming to the 11th district, you were still the kindest third princess of the Britannia Empire. After seeing the cruel truth, what can you do? You can't even save these human beings who have fallen into disillusionment. Why do you have to claim that you want to build a world where no one will lose the most important person? Ray Minkai's stern voice kept ringing in Euphemia's ears, and his terrifying eyes pierced into Euphemia's heart like a knife, constantly whipping and torturing Euphemia's heart. Euphemia, the third princess, opened her mouth, but she couldn't say anything. In the end, she could only bow her head powerlessly. I don't know. Really? You don't know? Ray Minkai's stern voice gradually became soft. Slowly, he said, "It's good that you don't know. If you don't know, then it means that you will know, and you will understand what you have to do and what you can do. Now, what you need to do is to think about what happened today. Then, when you get the answer, put your thoughts into action." Under Ray Minkai's gentle words, Her Royal Highness took a deep breath and looked up at the masked knight. At that time, "Kay, will you still refuse me? If your Royal Highness's answer can get my approval, then Knight K is willing to become your Royal Highness sword." Chapter 29. Euphemia had returned to the governor's mansion. Right now, it was time for Department Q to officially start work. "K, the results of the interrogation are out." Veretta handed the document with the interrogation results to Ray Minkai. Ray Minkai nodded, opened the document, and glanced at it. Then, he looked back at the confident Royd. "Royd, what's the result on your side?" Royd smiled and nodded. It's similar to the results of Veretta's interrogation. Although the illicit drugs placed in the basement look almost the same, according to the results of the sampling inspection, at least 1/3 of the illicit drugs here contain the mysterious substance we discovered. After Royd finished speaking, Veretta also nodded. According to the interrogation results obtained from the leader of the drug traffickers, it is indeed similar to Royd's speculation. 1/3. Ray Minkai closed his eyes and thought for a moment, then sneered a few times. Did the leader reveal the source of the illicit drugs? Veretta nodded first, then shook her head. A part of it, but those are the channels that Governor Cornelia is currently dealing with. As for the 1/3 of the illicit drugs, the leader couldn't give any useful information. Ray Minkai rubbed his chin and thought. Assuming that the goods were not purchased by the leader himself, then it means that this batch of drugs was provided to them by another gang. Yes. Cecil, who was looking at the illicit drugs piled on the side, suddenly exclaimed. Then, she walked over with a red bottle in each hand. "Kay, Royd, Veretta. Look, there's a mark on the bottom of the bottle." With Cecil's reminder, Ray Minkai and the others all looked at the bottom of the red bottle in Cecil's right hand. Q. An English letter was printed on the bottom of the red bottle. On the other hand, the bottom of the red bottle in Sehill's left hand was smooth and flat. Are these letters referring to illegal drugs that contain that mysterious substance? Veretta's brows furrowed slightly as she voiced out the doubts in her heart. Yes, that's right. In the beginning, I didn't notice it either. But just now, I suddenly saw this at the bottom of the sample bottles from which we found the mysterious substance. Sehill pointed at the Q mark and continued, "You're right. So, I speculated that the bottle with the Q mark was what we were looking for." This time, Ray Minkai and Royd didn't need to say anything. Royd knowingly took the newly obtained sample and once again immersed himself in the testing work with Cecil. Although this was already set in stone, out of caution, Ray Minkai and Royd decided to do another test. "Veretta, are there any other clues?" Ray Minkai still didn't give up and asked. Veretta lowered her head and thought for a while before she suddenly exclaimed, "Right. The leader seemed to have mentioned that there would be a delivery tomorrow." "Tomorrow?" Ray Minkai's eyes lit up when he heard this clue. One had to know that the leader was interrogated last night. It was now the morning of the second day. In other words, the so-called tomorrow was today. Time and place. As soon as possible. Yes. Valletta knew that time was of the essence. She nodded and immediately turned around to interrogate the leader again. The sun was high in the sky. Ray Minkai, who didn't sleep all night, once again brought the frontline members of Department Q to the side of the concession near Mount Fuji. There was a relatively sparsely populated forest there. Even if there was an occasional truck driving through the mud road in the forest, it wouldn't attract anyone's attention. If this forest was used as a secret trading place, it was indeed enough. Ray Minkai stood on the hillside and silently looked at the mud road that extended from the highway to the depths of the forest. Okay, it has been arranged. The vanguard has already sneaked in. It is estimated that there will be information back in 5 minutes. Valletta, who had changed into a rather unique driving suit, stood beside Ray Minkai and said in a low voice, Let the Sunderland team get ready. Ray Minkai nodded and turned his head to look at Valletta and shook his head. Actually, this time you don't have to drive Sunderland out. In a few days, your new body should be able to go offline. In response to Ray Minkai's kindness, Valletta firmly said, No, as a knight, I can't stand aside and watch the fight when it's within my ability. Is that so? Then, Valletta knew, go prepare. The next battle may be a difficult one. Seeing how determined Valletta was to participate in the battle, Ray Minkai couldn't exclude her from the battle order. Moreover, his intuition was faintly warning him. There seemed to be some unexpected events in the next battle. Beep beep. At this time, a rapid notification sounded. It's the Vanguard team. Valletta, who had just walked away, took out the walkie-talkie that she had already contacted the Vanguard team to confirm. She then turned around and returned to Ray Minkai's side and handed the walkie-talkie to him. This is Kay. What's the situation? Yes, the situation is true, but the scene seems a bit strange. The voice of the Vanguard team member came from the walkie-talkie. Report the situation. Ray Minkai's heart skipped a beat as he hurriedly shouted. However, on the other side of the walkie-talkie, there was a sudden cracking sound and a slight scream hidden in it. Not good. They've been discovered. Sunderland team, attack. Valletta, I'll leave the Sunderland team to you. I want to drive the Lancelot first. Yes, my lord. Buzz. Under the colorful sunlight that was torn into countless pieces by the dense leaves, the Lancelot turned into a white ghost and shuttled through the forest at full speed, trying to rush to the area where the Vanguard team was in the shortest time possible. As he rushed, a white light suddenly flashed in front of him. Ray Minkai's heart tightened. He subconsciously withdrew his left hand and pushed his right hand. The speeding Lancelot suddenly lowered its body and immediately slid across the ground in a low posture, quickly rushing out of the forest. At the same time, a dazzling light also brushed past the top of the Lancelot's head and disappeared into the forest. Boom! As the violent explosion blew up a large part of the forest, as the billowing flames mixed with thick smoke rose into the air, a Sunderland, a black body, holding a long spear that was about 2 meters long compared to the Sunderland. The black Sunderland was standing not far in front of Lancelot. Ray Minkai could also see through the Lancelot surveillance camera that there were some body tissues scattered around the black Sunderland. Those were the body tissues from the human body. It was not difficult for Ray Minkai to confirm the original identity of these scattered body tissues from the remains of the clothes that were still left on these body tissues. Obviously, the Vanguard team had been killed. The murderer was the black Sunderland in front of him. Ray Minkai didn't say anything, nor did he act like in the movies, where he had to talk a lot before he fought with the villain. Instead, he said, at the slightest disagreement, he started fighting. Lancelot's high-speed driving wheels instantly exploded. Dust flew everywhere. Lancelot immediately turned into a white shadow and swam back and forth in the forest as fast as lightning. That attack just now, and that huge gunshot. It was not difficult for Ray Minkai to determine that this black Sunderland should be different from the one he had encountered in the Shinjuku slums. Its power should come from that strange, huge gun. As expected, while Lancelot was wandering around, trying to find an opportunity to launch an attack, the black Sunderland moved. The huge gun, which was about 2 meters long, was lifted up effortlessly. It quickly locked onto Lancelot's position and shot out a beam of light. Buzz! The dazzling beam of light seemed to tear through the void. As it pounced straight at Lancelot's position, it swept through, devoured, and destroyed everything in its shooting axis. It did not stop until nothing could be left. Facing the beam of light with such terrifying force, Lancelot dodged to the side, trying his best to avoid the incoming beam attack. At the same time, he used his maximum attack rate to activate his energy light shield, blocking in front of him. Stab! A dazzling light that was enough to take away everything. A violent vibration. The constant beeping of warnings. And on the screen in front of him, the feedback interface that showed Lancelot's various conditions was quickly turning from green to red. Boom! A loud sound that resounded through the heavens and earth engulfed Lancelot. Then, in a huge column of smoke that rose into the air, Lancelot, whose body was covered in cracks and wounds, retreated. After knocking down several trees in succession, with Rei-Minkai's efforts, he was able to stabilize his body. The energy light on Lancelot's left arm flickered a few times, and then with a burst of explosion, it ended its life. The situation is not good. The enemy in front of him was too powerful. So powerful that Rei-Minkai, who had boarded Lancelot, felt a sense of powerlessness. Although from the outside, this was a Sunderland painted black. But Rei-Minkai knew that Sunderland did not have such a powerful beam weapon. In the Britannia Empire's army, only Lancelot was equipped with a beam weapon. Veretta, you take the Sunderland team to the back. I'll take care of this. Rei-Minkai opened the communication channel, and after calmly giving the order, he directly closed the channel. How unsightly. Do you want to deal with that monster alone? The mysterious white cat's voice suddenly came from the corner of the cockpit. Rei-Minkai smiled lightly and looked at the black Sunderland that was slowly walking out of the thick smoke and said, "Don't I still have you? Oof. I won't argue with you this time." The fur on the white cat's body gradually stood up. Its azure eyes were filled with killing intent, and its deep voice slowly narrated. "Kai, our enemy, the enemy that destroyed our homeland, has finally caught up. Chapter 30. Enemy? Hometown? Rei-Minkai didn't understand what the white cat was saying at all. Yes, that's the light that destroyed our hometown. Even if I die, I won't forget it. After the white cat let out a low growl, it turned around to look at Rei-Minkai and said, "Kai, although this body is a little ugly, leave it to me. You just need to pilot it and defeat the enemy." After the white cat glanced at Rei-Minkai, it actually jumped into the screen in front of Rei-Minkai. You. While he was stunned, Lancelot's body damage system that was constantly floating red quickly turned from red to green, as if the previous damage had never appeared. Moreover, Lancelot's energy index had soared to the limit in just 2 breaths, and it was even about to break through the upper limit and enter the next stage. However, Rei-Minkai knew that if this rapidly expanding energy was allowed to run wild, the first one to explode would be Lancelot himself. "Kai, what are you still standing there for?" The white cat's voice sounded in the cockpit. Rei-Minkai's eyes focused, and Lancelot raised the variable Vari's rifle in his hand and locked onto the black Sunderland that had completely walked out of the thick smoke. As Rei-Minkai pulled the trigger, a ball of purple light appeared in front of the muzzle of the rifle at a speed visible to the naked eye and grew bigger. Then, the trigger was released. The purple ball of light immediately stirred up bursts of wind and thunder, howling as it pounced towards the black Sunderland. Boom! The black Sunderland, who would not sit still and wait for death, raised the strange, huge gun in its hand and fired a beam of light at the incoming purple ball of light. Rumble! The moment the purple ball of light collided with the beam of light, an earth-shattering and intense energy collision immediately erupted from the point of collision. Explosion, gale, space, even light, all in this instant destroyed the forest, roared at the sky. Space was torn apart. It took away the light. Rei-Minkai, who was at the center of the explosion, didn't know what was happening outside. All he knew was that Lancelot hadn't been defeated and hadn't been hit by Sunderland's laser beam. The situation was still in a deadlock. Yes, even though the situation outside had already caused an earth-shattering explosion, Lancelot was still in a stalemate with Black Sunderland. Hold on a little longer. The White Cat's low growl sounded in the cockpit again. However, Ray Minkai could tell that the White Cat was not in a good state. However, just as the White Cat had said, he could only persevere. For some reason, Ray Minkai could clearly sense Lancelot's condition. He could feel the energy flowing through Lancelot's steel body. Then, the energy gathered in front of the rifle's muzzle and turned into a purple beam of light that clashed with the beam shot by Black Sunderland. However, even though Lancelot and Ray Minkai were using all their strength, Black Sunderland's beam of light was still advancing steadily, gradually pushing Lancelot's line of defense back until it was right in front of Lancelot. "Hold on," the White Cat growled, just as the light in front of him was about to drown Lancelot. A loud lion's roar suddenly exploded. Roar! In the light, a shadow stepped through the air and landed in front of Lancelot. It raised its claws and slapped, and a crack suddenly appeared in front of Lancelot. In an instant, the beam of light that broke through Lancelot's line of defense sank into the crack and disappeared. Then, the shadow exerted force with its hind legs and stepped with its front claws. Its whole body jumped into the air, raised its claws, and slapped down heavily on Black Sunderland. Boom! A golden flash flashed and disappeared. The Black Sunderland was split into two in the blink of an eye as the golden light flashed. It crashed heavily onto the ground and exploded with a loud bang. Roar! In front of the fireball formed by the explosion of Black Sunderland, the white shadow stood with its head held high. Another loud lion's roar resounded through the sky. This lion's roar that resounded through the sky alarmed everyone in this forest. Let's not talk about Royd, Veretta, and the others for now. On the cliff, on the other side of the forest, two figures were watching the changes in the forest from above. They were a middle-aged man in a white coat and a slender, beautiful woman in a pink nurse uniform. "We've been discovered. Looks like we'll have to be quiet for a few days. Phoenix, let's go back." The man in the white coat shrugged helplessly. When he was about to turn around and leave the cliff, he found that his right-hand man, Phoenix, was staring at the forest behind him. Phoenix, the vigilance shown by the beautiful assistant, did not surprise the man in the white coat. Because, in addition to assisting him in medical treatment, this beautiful assistant also had the duty to protect him and not be harmed by anyone. Dr. Zasali stepped back. The beautiful assistant stepped forward and blocked in front of the man in the white coat. Gotcha! Footsteps were heard. This was not because of Phoenix's eyes that were gradually filled with murderous intent, but because the other party deliberately broke the branches on the ground. Dr. Zasali, Nurse Phoenix, I didn't expect that on a vacation mission I would meet a big fish. Following the half-teasing, half-serious words, a girl in red with a long ponytail walked out of the forest and stood not far in front of the man in the white coat and the beautiful nurse. "You." When a man in the white coat saw the girl's appearance, he could not help but be shocked. "It's you." The man pointed at the girl's face in surprise and said, "I didn't expect that the pioneer's biological daughter would personally come to this low-level, civilized world." "Didn't expect?" The girl smiled lightly, her eyes flashing with the terrifying light unique to hunters. "Are you surprised? Compared to you, I'm more surprised that the famous doctor and nurse would appear here." The girl quickly glanced in the direction of the lion's roar and stared at the man in the white coat and said, "I'm afraid that the commotion just now was caused by you." The man in the white coat, the doctor the girl called Zasali, was about to speak when he was unexpectedly stopped by the beautiful nurse. "Doctor, after I count to 3, you turn around and jump off the cliff. This is the only way to escape capture." "Phoenix," Zasali shouted in a low voice. But the beautiful nurse shook her head. "Doctor, although I'm your medical nurse, but before that, I'm a combatant." As her voice fell, the beautiful nurse took a big stride and pounced toward the girl. Woo! The sound of the wind suddenly rose. It was a fist. The beautiful nurse's flawless white fist carried gusts of wind as it fiercely smashed toward the girl's face. In the face of such a terrifying fist, the girl's expression remained calm. She moved her feet and narrowly dodged the beautiful nurse's fist. Then, the girl raised her right hand and caught the beautiful nurse's fist. Naturally, the beautiful nurse wouldn't just stand by and watch her fist being controlled by the girl. Therefore, the beautiful nurse decisively raised her left hand, clasped her palm together like a knife, and fiercely chopped down on her right arm. Gotcha! In a burst of electric sparks, the beautiful nurse who had chopped off her right arm took a few steps back and used her intact left hand to take out a button from her pocket. Gotcha! A violent surge of energy immediately erupted from the right arm that the beautiful nurse had chopped off. Boom! In the blink of an eye, the girl's position was engulfed by the energy explosion that erupted from her right arm. Go! The beautiful nurse didn't have the joy of successful design on her face. Instead, she grabbed Dr. Zasali with a gloomy expression and jumped off the cliff with the doctor without looking back. In the thick smoke, a gust of wind with golden light swept through. The roiling flames and thick black smoke were all blown away. Oh no, I've been tricked. TSK. The girl who was accidentally killed by the beautiful nurse's design, but was still intact, looked around and said with some frustration. The girl raised her hands and looked at the armor that was forced to wear after the defense program was activated due to the emergency situation just now. She shook her head helplessly. I didn't expect the rumored beautiful nurse to be a cyborg. Were the people who collected the information mesmerized by her? So, they never updated the information about her? The girl patted her head in distress, opened the communication module on the armor, and shouted, Demonis, update the information. Nurse Phoenix may be a partially modified secondary human, but there's also a high chance that she's a cyborg transformed from a complete biochemical surgery. Demonis, information confirmed. Modified. This ship has detected abnormal energy fluctuations. Do you want to request reinforcements? The girl shook her head and refused without even thinking about it. No, Demonis. Maintain the current track and continue to execute the third monitoring program. Leave the matters on Earth to me for the time being. Understood. Demonis. Order confirmed. Continue with the original plan. After ending the communication with Demonis, the girl put away her armor, walked to the cliff, and looked at the woods below. Next time, I'll never let you go. Just you wait. Chapter 31. Roar. A roar rang out in the darkness. Then, a huge shadow slowly walked out of the darkness, exposing the huge white head under the faint light. His cold pupils were flowing with golden light. Thick and long sharp teeth shining with golden light. Golden sharp claws refracting a deep cold light. This was simply a huge creature like an ancient behemoth that had walked out of the primordial world. Lion. When he saw the true appearance of this huge figure, a name suddenly appeared in Ray Minkai's mind. But before he could blurt out this name, the huge creature turned around and looked at the darkness, as if inviting him, indicating for Ray Minkai to look into the depths of the darkness with it. Before Ray Minkai could react, his feet seemed to have left his control. He walked forward on his own and stood beside the white beast, looking into the depths of the darkness. As his gaze focused, a dot of light suddenly flashed in the depths of the darkness. It became brighter and brighter, until the moment the brightness of the dot of light reached its limit, a dazzling light erupted, and at the same time, Ray Minkai was drowned in it. Roar! In the dazzling light, another roar was heard. But this time, there were countless different roars following behind that roar, rising and falling one after another, continuously sounding. It seemed to be calling for something. When Ray Minkai put down his right hand that was blocking in front of his eyes, what appeared in front of him was no longer the dead darkness, but an endless plain. And in front of Ray Minkai, on the other side of the plain, there was a darkness that was churning with blood and fire, emitting an ominous and disgusting aura. Roar! Another roar came from beside him. Lei Mingkai turned his head to the side and discovered that there was a huge cliff not far to his right. And at the top of the cliff, there was a giant steel beast lying on its stomach. A silver horn, a purplish-red metal mane, a majestic and mighty body. As he looked at it, Lei Mingkai suddenly discovered that the shape of the steel beast, and even its tyrannical aura, was very similar to the white beast he had seen just now. No, or rather, the two might be the same giant beast. Kacha! In the dark sky, a series of thunderous roars could be heard. The lightning that made people feel uneasy swam wildly in the dark clouds. Amidst the lightning and thunder, the eyes of the steel behemoth lying on top of the cliff suddenly lit up. Roar! The steel behemoth raised its head and let out a resounding roar. In the midst of this roar, a sandstorm suddenly appeared on the plains below the cliff. Rumble! Amidst the sandstorm, a series of roars that almost covered the thunder and lightning in the sky quickly occupied the sky above the plains. Lei Mingkai took a closer look and was surprised to find that the deafening roar was the sound of countless steel beasts of different shapes and sizes running at high speed. They were all metal life forms. In fact, Lei Mingkai could even feel the intense vibrations coming from the ground as the steel behemoths ran at a terrifying speed. Is this a war? Lei Mingkai was keenly aware of what was going on with this shocking scene in front of him. In the ominous darkness in the distance of the plains, it suddenly began to roll crazily, as if it was nurturing something. At this moment, the steel behemoths that were running at high speed suddenly split into three groups. The two groups on the left and right circled around from the side, forming a pair of wings that responded to each other. As for the steel behemoth in the middle, as it began to slow down, it also opened the huge cannons on its back and missiles that were ready to fire. Boom! 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 In the next moment, the giant cannons roared and the missiles screamed. At this moment, lightning and thunder were no longer the main characters of the sky. At this moment, the ones that could become the main characters were those cannonballs and missiles that tore through the air and broke through the sky. Whistling sounds, surging towards the endlessly tumbling darkness. Rumble. The sound of explosions was endless. Balls of fire bloomed crazily in the uneasy darkness like bamboo shoots after the rain. However, in Lei Mingkai's opinion, this was undoubtedly a terrifyingly powerful attack, but did not cause the slightest bit of damage to the endlessly rolling darkness. In the midst of his surprise, the endlessly rolling blood fire suddenly exploded. At the same time that the blood and fire turned into a beautiful rain of fire, huge black figures broke through the darkness, bringing with them an extremely ominous aura that made one's scalp numb as they appeared in front of the steel beasts. Their appearance actually caused the steel behemoths to subconsciously take a step back. Roar! At this moment, the horned steel behemoth that had been standing on the cliff jumped down and turned into a purple stream of light. In the blink of an eye, it rushed to the front of the steel behemoth's formation and stood in front of the monsters that had rushed out of the darkness without fear. A great battle was about to begin. At this critical moment, a sense of weightlessness suddenly swept over, dragging Lei Mingkai into the darkness and losing all consciousness. When Lei Mingkai regained consciousness, he discovered that an intense pain was tearing his body apart. "You're awake?" "Okay." While being attacked by the immense pain, Lei Mingkai vaguely heard Sayer's voice. Miss Sayer?" Lei Mingkai gritted his teeth and forced his eyes open, trying to see his surroundings clearly. As a result, Lei Mingkai found himself lying in a ward, and his hands and feet were fixed by a thick layer of plaster. In this regard, Lei Mingkai was even more surprised to find that he didn't seem to be surprised or overwhelmed by the situation in front of him. "Kay, are you feeling unwell?" It was Sayer sitting by the bed. After she raised her hand and pressed the bell at the bedside, she looked at Lei Mingkai, who was looking around, and said, "You've been unconscious for a week. How do you feel now?" "A week?" Lei Mingkai froze for a moment, and he couldn't help but think of the situation when he fought with the mysterious Black Sunderland. At the critical moment, there seemed to be a white shadow appearing in midair and saving Lancelot and him. In the end, Ray Minkai couldn't help but fall into a coma. It wasn't until now that he woke up. Ray Minkai carefully took a breath to avoid touching the wound. Although he couldn't check his body now, it wasn't difficult to see what kind of situation his body was in from the pain coming from all over his body. What was the result of the operation? Ray Minkai gradually adapted to the pain and asked Sayer. Sayer nodded. It should be said that it was very successful. The Sunderland team, led by Veretta, found a large number of banned drugs containing mysterious substances in the basement of a cabin deep in the woods. Also, they seized a batch of tools that seemed to be used for processing. Did you catch anyone? Ray Minkai frowned. He tried to straighten his body, but to no avail, so he calmly accepted his current state. Except for the Black Sunderland that was crippled by Lancelot, we didn't catch anyone related. Sayer's answer didn't make Ray Minkai feel frustrated or surprised. If the White Shadow hadn't suddenly appeared and saved him and Lancelot, the Black Sunderland would have quickly retreated from the woods and destroyed the evidence after killing Lancelot. While he was thinking, the doctors and nurses who rushed over exchanged a few words with Sayer and immediately began to examine Ray Minkai. In desperation, Ray Minkai could only be at the mercy of the doctors and nurses. After a while, Sayer looked at the unhappy Ray Minkai with amusement. "Okay, it seems that your strange physique won't be able to help you much this time. Just now, the doctor made a preliminary assessment. It will take at least a month for you to recover to the extent of free movement." A month? The corner of Ray Minkai's mouth twitched, and for a moment, there was a trace of despair. He didn't expect that with the help of the mysterious white cat, he would fall into such a situation. Thinking of this, Ray Minkai looked to the side of the ward. There, a small bamboo basket was quietly placed there. That is, Ray Minkai seemed to think of a possibility. "Oh, this. Okay, did you save this white cat? When we found Lancelot and pulled you out of the cockpit, we found you hugging this white cat tightly." As Sayer spoke, he carefully showed the situation in the bamboo basket to Ray Minkai. Sure enough, the mysterious white cat was really lying quietly in the bamboo basket. Just take it that I saved it. Can you see it?" Ray Minkai hesitated for a moment and slowly nodded. "See it?" Sayer blinked and asked doubtfully. "Isn't it sleeping in the bamboo basket? It's strange that it was in a coma for a week, just like you." Sayer carefully covered the white cat with a small quilt and continued. "If it weren't for the inspection that this white cat was not only fine, but also very clean, I'm afraid it wouldn't be allowed to be brought here. Is that so?" "Thank you. Sayer, is your work okay?" Ray Minkai nodded and asked tentatively. Yes." Sayer looked down at his watch and exclaimed, "It's time for the handover. Why isn't Royd here yet?" After thinking for a while, Sayer said, "I'll go back and see what Royd is doing," and left in a hurry. After waiting for a while, Ray Minkai was sure that no one would come for the time being. He stared at the bamboo basket and slowly shouted, "White cat, are you dead? You're the one who's dead." A low roar sounded from the bamboo basket, and the mysterious white cat's figure jumped out and gently landed on Ray Minkai's bed. "You little brat, you really know how to make trouble." After the mysterious white cat mocked, it suddenly said with some loneliness, "Even so, I'm in a similar situation." The white cat sighed, walked to the side of Ray Minkai's head, and lowered its head to look into his eyes. "Our enemy has appeared, but now that I've exhausted all my strength, I can only fall into a deep sleep for the time being. Kai, before that, I'll speed up your recovery. Do everything in your power to investigate why our enemy appeared in this world." Then, before the white cat finished speaking, it closed its eyes and collapsed on the bed. Chapter 32. The white cat was in a deep sleep. Or rather, the mysterious white cat was in a deep sleep. Now, the white cat lying in Veretta's arms had lost the sense of mystery that only Ray Minkai could see. It had become a cute cat that everyone loved, a cat that was like a pet cat. Why did the mysterious white cat become like this? Ray Minkai didn't know, and he wasn't sure. From the beginning, there were too many mysteries surrounding the mysterious white cat, so many that Ray Minkai wondered if he was shrouded in a fog like the white cat. Maybe I'm not Ray Minkai. As soon as this question appeared, Ray Minkai smiled bitterly and sighed. Now, the only one who knew the truth, the white cat, was in a deep sleep. No matter how much he suspected, he probably wouldn't be able to get an answer. The only thing he knew was that the enemies mentioned by the mysterious white cat might have something to do with the mystery surrounding him. If he could find those enemies, he might be able to get some answers. However, if he encountered enemies like the Black Sunderland again, Lancelot alone might not be enough. Veretta, what happened to the Black Sunderland that Lancelot killed? While thinking, Ray Minkai asked Veretta. Veretta knew that Ray Minkai wasn't asking about the Black Sunderland, but the strange spear that was broken in two. Royd is trying to figure out something from the two halves of the wreckage, but I'm afraid there won't be any breakthroughs in a short period of time. Is that so? I see. Ray Minkai wasn't surprised at all. After all, the strange weapon used by the Black Sunderland was indeed a technological crystallization and system that had never been seen before in this world. Even Royd, who designed and built the 7th-generation cutting-edge Lancelot, would probably be worried about how to crack it. Veretta, I'll leave Department Q to you for the time being. I can't move now. Ray Minkai glanced at the casts that were still fixed on his limbs, then looked up at Veretta and said, Understood. By the way, I'll take care of this white cat. Okay. Since it's awake, it can't stay in the hospital. Veretta nodded and picked up the white cat with both hands. The mysterious white cat had fallen into a deep sleep, so the white cat that had turned into an ordinary kitten couldn't stay in the hospital any longer. Leave it at the special mission station. At least, it will be taken care of. Yes. After Ray Minkai explained a few things, Veretta left the hospital with the white cat. Ray Minkai glanced at the ward that became quiet again, then slowly closed his eyes. Before the mysterious white cat went into hibernation, it had indeed done as it had said. It had accelerated the self-recovery of Ray Minkai's body. Now, Ray Minkai could clearly feel that the pain that spread throughout his body was gradually subsiding, and the most important thing was that his limbs gradually began to regain some sense of touch. According to the current speed of recovery, Ray Minkai secretly estimated the time. There was a high probability that the recovery would be completed in 5 days. At this speed, the doctors would probably be shocked again. After all, Ray Minkai knew from Seahill and Veretta that when he was sent to the hospital, his limbs were all fractured, and there was also a large amount of internal bleeding. Under such an extremely dangerous situation, the doctors who participated in the rescue almost used all of their knowledge to pull Ray Minkai back from the jaws of death. Let's take it slow. Ray Minkai thought for a moment and decided not to attract too much attention. However, he couldn't stay in the hospital for too long. Otherwise, the enemy's whereabouts might be lost. The opportunity quickly presented itself to him. The next day, after the doctors and nurses finished their routine inspection, the hospital was locked down by a group of people. Other than Ray Minkai's room, the other wards were temporarily not allowed to enter. Only the approved doctors and nurses, as well as the armed soldiers, could leave the wards. Other than the governor of District 11, there was no one else who could cause such a huge commotion. As expected, as the adjutant Dalton entered the ward, Ray Minkai's guess was confirmed. Governor, I'm very sorry. I'm temporarily unable to salute you. Ray Minkai lay on the bed and smiled bitterly. Cornelia, who followed Dalton into the ward, looked at Ray Minkai's 4 limbs that were fixed in plaster and nodded. Don't mind it. Okay, I will remember your contribution when I led my personal guards to cut off the passage of illegal drugs. Now, your mission is to recover. As for the rest, leave it to me and your subordinates Veretta. Cornelia sat on the stool that Dalton pulled over and looked at Ray Minkai's injuries with concern. I heard that during your last operation, you encountered the strange Sunderland again? Ray Minkai nodded and smiled bitterly. Yes, Governor. This time, I faced the Black Sunderland alone. In the end, this is what you saw. It was a Pyrrhic victory. But in terms of results, you were victorious. You also brought back clues about the enemy in Area 11. Moreover, you let us know that other than the Chinese Federation's channels, there is another unknown force that is corrupting Area 11. No one can ignore your contribution. Cornelia seemed to be dissatisfied with Rei Mingkai's bitter smile. Now, I have requested for a research team from my country to assist Royd in deciphering the remains. I believe that there will be results soon. Yes, Veretta has already told me about this. Rei Mingkai nodded. That's good. K. Although I don't know why you lost your real name, you can now be considered a true knight. Quickly recover. Then, continue to roam the battlefield as a knight. Cornelia nodded, stood up, and looked at Rei Mingkai seriously. Yes, Your Highness. K. If your body recovers fast enough, you may be able to participate in my next operation. Cornelia, who turned around and was about to leave, suddenly said something that made Rei Mingkai feel that the opportunity was coming. Yes, Your Highness. I will try my best to restore my body to the point where it can support the battle. Rei Mingkai solemnly responded. Is that so? Then I'll wait and see. Today, it was destined not to be quiet. As soon as Cornelia left, Euphemia took the baton and came to the ward where Rei Mingkai was. K, your body. Although Euphemia learned about Rei Mingkai's situation from the report, after seeing Rei Mingkai's state with her own eyes, she couldn't help but be shocked. She quickly walked to the bed and asked worriedly, Yo, Deputy Governor, now I can't perform the knight salute to you. Rei Mingkai grinned and teased himself. You. Euphemia froze for a moment and gave Rei Mingkai a reproachful look. You're already like this. What's the point of fussing about that? Moreover, there's only the two of us here. You should call my name. Okay, UFFI. Don't worry. It's just a flesh wound. It'll be fine in a few days. Rei Mingkai smiled and said indifferently. Flesh wound? You're already like this. Your limbs are fractured and your internal organs are bleeding. If it weren't for the skills of the doctors here, I'm afraid you'd be glorious. Euphemia's little face was full of worry. Yes, I was careless. I didn't expect the enemy to have such a trump card. Rei Mingkai put away his teasing mood, and his face gradually became serious. UFFI, for now on, it's best that you don't leave the concession. We don't know what else those people will do in the dark other than selling illegal drugs. But Euphemia frowned as if she was unwilling to do so. No buts. UFFI. The governor is the goddess of war who gallops on the battlefield. At the same time, there are also personal guards following her. But you're different. Although you have the title of deputy governor by your side, not to mention personal guards, you don't even have a knight. Rei Mingkai took a breath and looked into Euphemia's eyes. Therefore, whether it's the governor or I, we're most worried about you. UFFI. Under Rei Mingkai's insistence, Euphemia finally nodded and agreed to Rei Mingkai's request. Immediately after, Euphemia couldn't stay in the hospital for too long. Moreover, the people who followed Euphemia's footsteps were Royd and the others. Kay, it's great to see that you're fine. I was worried that Lancelot's pilot would be gone. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. Royd, who had two faint dark circles under his eyes, opened the door and sat by the bed. He carefully looked at Rei Mingkai and said. Rei Mingkai shook his head and said weakly, Sometimes, I really hope you can find another pilot. What? You want to use this incident to leave the special mission and leave Lancelot? Looking at Royd's surprised face, Rei Mingkai felt a little proud. Yes, after all, the enemy's power has far exceeded Lancelot's power limit. Royd, what do you think I should do? This time my limbs are fixed in plaster. Next time, I'm afraid I'll be lying in the Imperial Cemetery. Hearing Rei Mingkai's words, Royd's face suddenly showed a trace of dissatisfaction. It's just a beam rifle. Don't worry, Lancelot has already fixed it. Also, I deliberately increased the output of the energy beam shield, Royd said as he gestured with his fingers. Although we still can't completely analyze the beam rifle, I got inspiration from it. Roy didn't keep him in suspense and said straightforwardly, "Now, Lancelot's energy beam shield is enough to withstand the beam attack you encountered before. Is that so? I can't wait to leave the hospital and get on Lancelot to test it." Hee hee. Don't worry. As long as your body, with amazing recovery, can make it in time, you may be able to participate in the next Narita battle. Chapter 33. Everyone, please look. The injured person lying in bed is the youngest and most promising knight of the Holy Britannia Empire, K. A young man with 4 limbs fixed in plaster and a silver mask on his face appeared on the screen. He was lying in a hospital bed and being interviewed by a reporter. This was a news interview instructed by the governor of the 11th District, Cornelia. Moreover, in order to make Ray Minkai willing to be interviewed, Cornelia even promised that he didn't need to take off his mask. Therefore, Ray Minkai nodded and agreed. Facing the camera, Ray Minkai remained calm and didn't seem to show too much emotion. He let the female reporter in charge of interviewing him speak freely. Perhaps everyone has some doubts about the silver mask on his face, but as long as the audience knows about his recent achievements, you will understand why he wears this mask. Illegal drug refrain. I believe some of the audience will be familiar with it. Yes, this so-called refrain is an illicit drug that has been circulating among our compatriots, the honorary Britannians, for a very long time. Now, let's ask our knight, Kay, to tell us about the dangers of refrain. After the female reporter briefly introduced the basic information about refrain, she handed the microphone to Ray Minkai. The eyebrows under the mask frowned. Ray Minkai glanced at the cardboard with the interview script fixed under the camera and began the interview. After a back-and-forth exchange, the interview finally came to an end. "Thank you for your hard work, Sir K." After the interview, a middle-aged man with a gentle and polite temperament thanked Ray Minkai with his unique low voice. "No problem. It's much easier than killing the enemy. After all I have to do is read the script." Ray Minkai smiled and said self-deprecatingly, "Sir K is too modest." In the interview just now, there were a few places that deviated from a script. Moreover, this not only didn't affect the results of the interview, but it also made the interview better. The middle-aged man said with a slight bow. He knew that although the man in front of him looked pitiful and was covered in wounds, he had gained the favor of Governor Cornelia because of this. This knight had a bright future ahead of him. As an outstanding journalist, he didn't want to offend this rising star. "Oh, sorry for making you laugh. May I know your name?" Ray Minkai shook his head and took the initiative to ask for the middle-aged man's name. "Dido Hart Lit salutes you, young and promising knight." The middle-aged man bowed and greeted Ray Minkai. "Dido Hartlet?" Ray Minkai pondered for a moment and looked up at the room. At this time, other than him and the middle-aged man named Dido Hartlet, the others had already packed their things and left the ward. Dido Hartlet. In the previous orange incident, there was a shot that was very close to 0. I wonder which photographer took it. Ray Minkai's question made Dido Hart pause for a moment. Then his head seemed to have lowered even more. "I'm very sorry. At that time, because I was in a hurry to get the first-hand information, I had to carry the camera myself and run to the front line to shoot. I hope Sir K can understand." Hearing Dido Hart's explanation, Ray Minkai's eyebrows raised slightly, but he was interested. "Raise your head, Dido Hartlet. I do not, nor do I blame you for the meaning and power. The reason I ask this is because I have something to give to the photographer, which is you, Dido Hartlet, to do." The corner of the mouth under the silver mask quietly raised. Ray Minkai's eyes gradually became unfathomable. "Something? Is there something you need me to do, sir?" Dido Hart paused for a moment and couldn't help but ask. "Uh-huh, yes." Ray Minkai nodded and said slowly, "Dido Hartlet, you pursue the truth of first-hand information, and you also pursue the supreme joy of uncovering the truth, right?" Dido Hart's face was full of astonishment. For some reason, he suddenly felt that the knight who could only lie on the sickbed in front of him had seen through him with a single glance. "Sir, What do you mean? Zero. Dido Heart. You should have your own information channel. Now, what I want you to do is to do everything you can to get close to Zero and become an officer of the Black Knight Order. Rei Minkai's words shocked Dido Heart. Even if Rei Minkai didn't say it, Dido Heart, whose status was gradually declining due to the Orange Incident, already had plans to join the Black Knight Order. But now that Dido Heart agreed to Rei Minkai's request, he was afraid that he would become a double agent. Rei Minkai glanced at Dido Heart, whose expression was constantly changing as he fell into deep thought. Rei Minkai ignored him and didn't urge him anymore. He closed his eyes and rested while waiting for Dido Heart's reply. After a long time, when the sun was setting and the wind blew the curtains, Dido Heart finally got an answer. Sir, I agree. Before I contact you, focus on fighting for the position of an officer of the Black Knight Order. Someone will inform you of the mission when the time comes. Yes. The idea of Dido Heart becoming a double agent was just a whim. When he saw him, this whim swept through Rei Minkai's mind like a tsunami. It was as if, from the beginning, Dido Heart lit might. No, he would definitely do this, even if he didn't influence it. Rei Minkai moved his hands and feet. After feeling the weight of the cast for a while, he slowly put down his hands and feet. Now, most of his senses had been restored. Only some minor parts still needed to be recovered and trained. Or, it's time to remove the cast. Otherwise, I'm afraid I can't participate in the plan to attack Narita. Rei Minkai turned around and looked at the setting sun that had sunk into the horizon. It was night. The Black Knight Order, which had been growing in strength due to the previous activity, finally welcomed new blood. A new body named Rogue was secretly sent from Kyoto and became the new equipment of the Black Knight Order. Among them, a new body painted with crimson as the main color became the highlight of the support equipment given to the Black Knight Order this time. Facing the brand new body, everyone couldn't help but feel proud. Compared to the previous guerrilla life, the Black Knight Order, which was now called the Messenger of Justice by Countless 11, was too good and too wonderful. Shan, Yuqing, and the others all had the same thought. Karen, this Red Lotus second style is yours. Zero walked out of the shadows and gave the order for Karen to become the Red Lotus second style. But, according to the defense, the Red Lotus 2 will be better. Karen was surprised. No, if I were to pilot the Red Lotus 2, it would be a waste of its power. Karen, remember the White Knight? The White Knight that could easily defeat that kind of monster. Under Zero's reminder, Karen immediately remembered the night when they encountered the unknown body. The black monster, the White Knight, when everyone felt helpless against the unbreakable and mysterious force field of the Black Sunderland. The White Knight, wielding two sharp swords, easily killed it. Although Karen had rescued the other party once under Zero's command, judging from the result, even without Karen's help, the other party had a high chance of safely escaping the attack. Zero. If we encounter the Black Sunderland again, can the Red Lotus 2 defeat it? Although Karen asked if they could defeat the Black Sunderland, in fact, she was alluding to the White Knight, Lancelot. What if I say yes? Zero asked rhetorically. Karen was taken aback, and then revealed a look of trust. Then I can defeat it, if there is the Red Lotus 2. Very good. Karen, from today onwards, the Red Lotus 2 is yours. As soon as Zero finished speaking, Sean rushed over from the side with a hurried expression. Zero, there's a situation. Zero glanced at the hurried Sean and asked in a deep voice, "What's the matter?" Sean handed the tablet to Zero and said, "A Britannian named Dido Heart Lit has applied to join our Black Knight Order. Moreover, he said that he wants to give you a greeting gift." "Oh, a greeting gift?" Zero took the tablet and looked at it, then muttered to herself. For a long time, Zero did not speak, which made Sean and Karen feel a burst of pressure. "Yes," Sean replied to him, "if this greeting gift is real, then he will be a member of the Black Knight Order. But he is a Britannian." Zero's words surprised Sean, and she subconsciously retorted, "So what? I'm not 11, nor am I Japanese. Aren't you following my orders as well? As long as you resist tyranny, Resist the barbaric and cruel Britannia Empire. You will be a comrade of the Black Knight Order. Zero scolded Sean and said in a deep voice, "Don't forget, on the night when the Black Knight Order was established, we made a declaration. No matter who it is, as long as we have the same goal, we are comrades." The aura that erupted from Zero's body made Sean silent. Shan's thinking was still in the same small scale as before, and his vision was still narrow, so he was unable to understand Zero's intentions. But it did not affect Shan's determination to carry out Zero's orders. "Yes, I understand. Zero, reply now." Just as Sean was about to turn and leave, Zero called out to him. "Sean, inform everyone. This weekend, we're going on an outing." "An outing? What's the current situation?" Karen, who was listening, blinked and asked in confusion. "Yes, an outing. Moreover, there will be opportunities for our Black Knight Order to grow. Isn't that right?" Zero said mysteriously. Chapter 34. After removing the cast, washing his body, and putting on the military uniform that he hadn't worn for a long time, Ray Minkai looked completely new. 8 days. It was one day, longer than expected, but judging from the feedback from all over his body, the extra day allowed his body to recover to an almost perfect state. Ray Minkai moved his joints while lamenting the terrifying ability of the mysterious white cat. Moreover, listening to the words of the mysterious white cat before it fell asleep, it seemed that it could reach an even more powerful level. "Okay, the discharge certificate is done." Veretta's voice came from outside the door. Let's go." Lei Minkai opened the door and left the hospital with Valletta without looking back. He had stayed in the hospital for more than a week. As soon as they returned to the special mission station, Ray Minkai and Veretta were suddenly drowned by a burst of colorful petals falling from the sky. "Welcome to the hospital." Lei Minkai didn't even need to look to know that the person who caused this commotion was definitely Royd. Ray Minkai helplessly brushed away the ribbon on his head and reached out to pull up Veretta, who was drowned in the sea of petals. He glared at Royd. "Even if it's to celebrate the discharge, there's no need to celebrate like this, right? These colorful petals can drown people." Veretta, who was pulled up by Ray Minkai, had a lot of colorful petals on her head, shoulders, and even on her firm chest. She looked very embarrassed. "Royd, I told you. There's no need to buy so many ribbons." Cecil smiled apologetically at Veretta and turned to stare at Royd. "Mama, isn't this good? The atmosphere, the color, everything is there. Look, the ground is full of petals and ribbons. How beautiful." Looking at Royd, who was still trying to quibble, Ray Minkai sighed helplessly. "Veretta, go tidy up. Later, I have something to ask you." After sending Veretta away, Ray Minkai pulled Royd to Lancelot. In the end, it's time to get down to business." Royd, who allowed Ray Minkai to pull him in front of Lancelot, pushed up his glasses and said sternly, "Tell me, before in the hospital, you should only have a rough idea." Ray Minkai pointed to the suspected variable Vari's rifle placed next to Lancelot. Why did he ask this question? This was because Lei Minkai's sharp eyes had noticed that the appearance of the changeable Vari's rifle seemed to have been modified. "I've been discovered. Yes. When I was retrieving Lancelot, I read the combat record. I found that under the influence of certain factors, the shooting mode of the rifle can change to an illumination mode." Royd stepped forward and walked to the side of the rifle. He raised his hand and patted the barrel of the rifle and continued. "But according to my original shooting, the rifle doesn't have an illumination mode. After all, whether it's the ammunition or the barrel itself, I've never tried it nor designed an illumination mode." Ray Minkai knew the answer to Royd's question. However, he still couldn't tell Royd about it. Could he tell Royd that it was the mysterious white cat that made Lancelot like this? Royd didn't know Ray Minkai's hidden thoughts, but he had his own solution. Why would a rifle that doesn't even have an illumination model design suddenly have an illumination model? This question, in the end, I found the answer from the strange gun that Lancelot cut in half. Answer: Ray Minkai raised his eyebrows. Could it be that Royd already deciphered the technology on the wreckage and applied it to Lancelot? Yes, I found a small thing on the wreckage. Although I don't know its full function yet, for now, it can temporarily allow Lancelot's rifle to have an illumination mode. Royd pointed at the strange protrusion at the end of the rifle barrel and slowly said, "It's amazing, right? I also think it's amazing. They are two completely incompatible systems, but they can be combined." Royd's face gradually showed a trace of excitement. However, this excitement didn't make Ray Minkai happy. Although he didn't know why, Ray Minkai pulled out the pistol from his waist. Gotcha! The bullet was loaded. Ray Minkai walked toward Royd without any expression. See here, who was standing at the side, was shocked. He quickly rushed forward and blocked in front of Royd. "Okay, what do you want to do?" Ray Minkai didn't pay attention to Cecil, nor did he pay attention to the frowning Royd. He just walked straight to the side of the rifle. He walked to the front of the protrusion that had fused with the barrel. He raised the gun. He aimed at the protrusion. Wait. "Okay, what do you want to do?" Royd immediately guessed what Ray Minkai wanted to do and hurriedly stopped him. But Ray Minkai's eyes flashed with a cold light. The trigger was pulled. Bang, bang, bang. After Ray Minkai emptied the magazine of the pistol in one breath, he looked at the protrusion through the faint smoke. How is this possible? What was installed, it was still metal. How did it become flesh now? Royd screamed. He, who had personally installed that little thing on the rifle, naturally knew what kind of state that thing was in before. How could this be? Seher also looked at the protrusion that was splashed with black and red liquid by the bullets in disbelief. "Okay, did you notice it from the beginning?" After a short moment of surprise, the intuitive Seher discovered Ray Minkai's motive. Probably. After Ray Minkai skillfully changed the magazine, he raised the gun again and pulled the trigger. Bang! Bang! After the second round of almost zero-distance shooting, the connection between the protrusion and the rifle was finally broken. The moment the last bullet penetrated the protrusion, which had run out of black and red liquid, fell to the ground with a plop. This is a creature. Royd grabbed his hair and recalled every detail when he was modifying the rifle. He squatted on the ground and looked at the protrusion that was gradually turning black. "I don't know. It's just that my intuition tells me not to let these things touch the body. Otherwise, something extremely bad will happen." Ray Minkai silently stared at the protrusion on the ground for a while, then put away the pistol and said indifferently, "Intuition? Intuition again?" Royd smiled bitterly, stood up, and looked at the warehouse where the wreckage was kept. "Okay, if what you said is true, then we can't let the scientific research team from our country come into contact with that thing. Don't you think it's a pity?" Ray Minkai looked at Royd strangely. According to Royd's obsession with Lancelot, he shouldn't let go of this opportunity so easily. However, Royd waved his hand and said with some frustration, No, I'm not the same as those idiots. What's more, after seeing the battle between Lancelot and the Black Sunderland with my own eyes, I would rather rely on my own strength to create a more powerful Lancelot than rely on the unknown power." "Really?" Ray Minkai didn't believe it. "Absolutely." Royd shrugged and put on a model that didn't matter if he believed it or not. But it was this sloppy model that made Ray Minkai believe it. After being together for so long, only this sloppy Royd, who was reliable at critical moments, was worthy of Ray Minkai's trust. "That?" Sehil carefully raised his hand and asked, "Do you want to burn the wreckage?" "Burn it," Royd and Ray Minkai said in unison. "Really burn it? It seems to be able to bring our technology to a whole new level." Sehir blinked, seemingly reluctant to part with it. Seeing this, Royd helplessly put his hands on his hips. "Sehil, you saw the scene just now. Do you want to open Pandora's box at the same time?" Sehil's expression froze. Then he shook his head again and again. "That's right. Burn it. Just treat it as an accident caused by the failure of the experiment." Royd nodded and casually ordered. Then, Royd said helplessly, "It's rare to find a good way to greatly increase Lancelot's power. In the end, we still have to go back to the old way. F***CK. Nothing good ever happens when you come back. Hee hee. Is that so? I think I came back at the right time. At least Pandora's box hasn't been opened. Ray Minkai didn't buy it. Oof. You win. Royd was a little speechless and quickly changed the topic to Lancelot. Now, Lancelot's energy light shield has been adjusted according to the previous battle record. The energy output has been raised by 30% under the current equipment permitting. Also, I added an overload mode program. It can increase the strength of the energy light shield by 200% for 30 seconds, but after the time is up, the energy light shield will be scrapped. After Royd finished speaking, he waved his hand and looked at Ray Minkai and said, I won't say more about the things I told you. Anyway, you've driven Lancelot out so many times, so you naturally know what to do. That's good. Although the rifle was still the previous rifle, with the new energy light shield, even if he encountered the same Black Sunderland as last time, Ray Minkai was confident that he could fight it. After all, the first time was unfamiliar, but the second time was familiar. After fighting twice, even if the Black Sunderland was armed with different types of weapons, Ray Minkai faintly noticed the similarities between them. Just when Ray Minkai was about to board the Lancelot, Veretta, who had tidied up her clothes, came with a document. Okay. Notification of attack. Governor Cornelia and Deputy Governor Euphemia have already led the army to Narita. Our Q department is also on the list. Chapter 35. Sometimes, it really had to be said. Fate was a naughty child. It could always surprise you when you least expect it. And the man with short indigo hair, standing in front of Ray Minkai, was the surprise that fate had brought to Ray Minkai. Sir K. Knight Jeremiah Godebald reporting to you. The former border count, an ordinary pilot now, really made Ray Minkai sigh. However, he would not waste this gift that fate had brought to him. Jeremiah, long time no see. Ray Minkai nodded and said calmly, No, I'm just an ordinary pilot now. Sir K, please don't worry about anything. Please tell me what to do. It seemed that because of the influence of the Orange incident, this fanatical pureblood finally saw some reality. However, Ray Minkai noticed a trace of resentment in his eyes. In the end, he's still a person who can't recognize reality. With this thought in mind, Ray Minkai turned his head to look at the scenery outside the window. At this time, Ray Minkai and the others were on the highway leading to the Narita area, rushing to the Narita area, and participating in the plan to eliminate the Neon Liberation Front launched by Governor Cornelia. It was for this reason that Jeremiah was sent to Department Q as a supplementary member. Ray Minkai's gaze gradually became sharp, and he said in a deep voice, Then, Jeremiah, you should already know the content of the next operation. Do you have any thoughts? Yes. This subordinate has no other thoughts other than revenge. Revenge. Ray Minkai smiled coldly, as if he was not interested in Jeremiah's answer. He stood up from his seat and turned to look at the scenery outside the window that was constantly retreating. Jeremiah, before I came to District 11, it was said that a reconnaissance team had been ambushed because they went too deep into the Narita area, and in the end, they were all wiped out. Is there such a thing? Ray Minkai's question stunned Jeremiah. He was aware of this matter. Moreover, he was the one who issued the mission. Yes, there was indeed such a thing. After those heroic warriors died for their country, the late 3rd Prince Clovis also held a memorial service for them. After Jeremiah recalled the details, he told Ray Minkai everything. Oh, is that so? Ray Minkai raised his eyebrows. He realized that what Jeremiah said was already known to Ray Minkai himself. He had also investigated it. Jeremiah, there is nothing wrong with the reconnaissance team going deep into the area to investigate. But why can't I find any records about them? Ray Minkai enunciated each word clearly and asked Jeremiah a question. Jeremiah showed hesitation at that moment, which let Ray Minkai know that there must be something strange behind this. When Ray Minkai took charge of Department Q, he secretly sent people to search for the female knight who was communicating with Gowron that night. But the result was fruitless. It seemed that after Gowron died in battle, this young female knight left this sad place. However, Ray Minkai had an intuition in his heart that told him, there must be something hidden in this. Jeremiah's attitude at this time also explained everything. Jeremiah, can you tell me why? Now is the best time for Governor Cornelia to attack Narita and wipe out the Neon Liberation Front. Lei Minkai's sharp eyes looked straight into Jeremiah's eyes as he said forcefully, if Governor Cornelia's operation failed because of your concealment of the potential clues about the Narita district, Governor Cornelia's action will fail. Then, I'm afraid the future you will face will not be as simple as a civilian stripped of all rights. Jeremiah Godbold. Ray Minkai's voice became more and more low and hoarse, but in Jeremiah's ears, it was as deadly as a demon from hell. When he thought of what he thought was the most terrifying future, fear and struggle immediately appeared on Jeremiah's face. The next moment, Jeremiah, who had been tortured by heavy pressure since the orange incident, relented. Yes, Your Excellency K. Please give me a chance. Let me wash away my shame. Don't let me shame the Empire and the family again. Looking at the panicked Jeremiah, who was on the verge of collapse, Ray Minkai secretly said in his heart, Thank you very much. Zero, Jeremiah explained. The mystery of a night before Gowron's death gradually opened up under Jeremiah's narration. Gusali J. Trifasa. This was a name that Ray Minkai had been investigating but could not find. This was the name of the female pilot who had a good conversation with Gowron on the night when he reported to the 11th District. As soon as he heard the surname Trifasa, Ray Minkai immediately realized that the truth might have already appeared. Sure enough, Jeremiah explained what happened after the welcome banquet between Gusali and Gowron. It was a rather romantic affair. Of course, these things were not seen by Jeremiah with his own eyes, but learned from some well-informed people before the order came. Order? An order from the country? Ray Minkai's voice gradually became cold, but secretly, there was a trace of helplessness. I'm afraid that the thing that will cause Gowron to be killed is his own unrestrained character that attracts bees and butterflies. The result was really as Ray Minkai speculated. It was not Jeremiah who asked Gowron to go to the Narita area to carry out the investigation mission, nor was it General Batley, but it was a request from a big shot in the country. This time, Ray Minkai already understood. Trifasa. Hee. So that's it. The reason why Ray Minkai was wearing that silver mask and staying in the special mission incognito was because he killed Anpede V, said the eldest son of Duke Sed's family in the school year summary meeting. And this noble eldest son also had a fiancée, the only daughter from the Trifasa family. Everything was clear now. After letting Jeremiah leave, Ray Minkai sat alone in the room, silent. Bang! A violent sound rang out. Ray Minkai gritted his teeth, feeling the pain when his fist collided with the cold table. Gowron, you bastard! Why do you still want to provoke that woman? Isn't it enough that I'm dead? Now, even you have to pay for it. Ray Minkai took a deep breath and growled. If you weren't lying in that coffin now, see if I would beat you up, bastard. The scenery outside the window gradually slowed down. They arrived at the Narita area. Under the guidance of the soldiers, Department Q's convoy slowly drove into the predefined position. Veretta planned to knock on Ray Minkai's door and inform him to go to the mothership to participate in the combat meeting. However, before Veretta knocked on the door, Ray Minkai opened the door by himself. At that moment, the cold, indifferent aura and the sharp gaze made Veretta stunned. She raised her right hand that was about to knock on the door and forgot to put it down for a moment. Veretta, what's wrong? Ray Minkai glanced at his assistant and asked. Oh no, I'm very sorry. I was distracted. Kay, the governor informed you to go to the mothership to participate in the combat meeting. Veretta quickly shook her head and explained quickly. Okay, I got it. Ray Minkai nodded and turned to leave. Veretta looked at Ray Ming-Kai's back with some confusion. She didn't seem to understand why Ray Ming-Kai became a little cold. In fact, it wasn't only Veretta who thought so. Even everyone who participated in the combat meeting felt that the masked knight was a little unapproachable. Cold, silence, and a sharpness hidden in the depths of a low profile. If it weren't for the presence of Cornelia and Euphemia, some people with more impulsive personalities might have clashed with Ray Ming-Kai. Maybe it was lucky, maybe it was unlucky. Cornelia didn't assign any tasks to Ray Ming-Kai and Department Q from beginning to end, as if she had forgotten about them. Okay, wait. After the combat meeting ended, Ray Ming-Kai, who turned to leave, was stopped by Euphemia. "What's the matter, Your Highness?" "Your Highness." Ray Ming-Kai's tightly pursed lips loosened slightly. "No. Did something happen?" "Kay, you seem different today," Euphemia asked cautiously. Looking at Euphemia's worried eyes, Ray Ming-Kai slowly smiled. "No, Your Highness. Maybe it's because of the whispers of the Empire's heroic spirits in my ears." "Heroic spirits? Whispers?" Euphemia was surprised. She looked left and right, but didn't see anything. "Yes, Your Highness." Ray Ming-Kai closed his eyes and said in a deep voice. "The heroic spirits said, 'Revenge. Revenge for us.'" Narita. After the defeat of Neon, this fortress was built by the remnants of the Neon Liberation Front. When Cornelia surrounded them with great fanfare, Major General Kates and the others, who were still dreaming of reviving Neon, didn't notice anything strange. "How lax?" "Kates." Two figures suddenly appeared and rudely pushed open the door of the command center. They looked mockingly at the soldiers who quickly reacted and raised their guns at them, as well as Major General Kates in an old neon uniform hiding behind the soldiers. "You're Dr. Zasali." Major General Kates, who recognized the identity of the people, raised his hand to dismiss the surrounding soldiers. He looked at the man and woman who slowly walked into the command center with a serious expression. "Dr. Zasali, what are you doing here?" Major General Kates stared at the man in the white coat and asked in a hoarse voice. "What am I doing here?" The man in the white coat seemed a little surprised. "Kates, did you forget? We still have some unfinished business between us." "Shut up. That's not a business deal. We are human." Major General Kates slammed the table and roared. "Human? Hee. Is that so?" After the man in the white coat snapped his fingers, the beautiful nurse behind him opened the suitcase in her hand and handed it to Major General Kates. "If you still insist on being human, then let me see your choice in the face of life and death." Major General Kates. The man in the white coat gradually raised the corner of his mouth and said a piece of information. "Right now, the governor of Area 11, Cornelia, is leading her army to surround us." Major General Kates. Chapter 36. The attack began. Ray Ming-Kai stood in front of Lancelot and raised his head to look at the smoke and dust in the forest. A few minutes ago, Cornelia, who had ended the battle meeting, immediately gave the order to attack. Moreover, as the commander, she also drove the Gloucester to participate in this attack. "Your Excellency, please allow me to attack." At this time, a voice sounded behind Ray Ming-Kai. It was Jeremiah. "Don't be impatient. Jeremiah, if you want to avenge your humiliation, then wait patiently," Ray Ming-Kai said calmly. Jeremiah didn't know that Ray Ming-Kai's eyes hidden under the silver mask were staring at the depths of the mountain in front of him, as if there was something there that was worthy of Ray Ming-Kai's attention. But, Jeremiah, calm down. Sir K has his own arrangements for when Department Q will attack. Veretta, who was standing at the side, looked at Jeremiah and scolded. Jeremiah clenched his fists and stared at the depths of the mountain. There, a black cloud rose into the sky. Boom! The battle began. Ray Ming-Kai glanced at the black cloud, then turned around and returned to the command vehicle. "Royd, do you have a map of this place?" Ray Ming-Kai's question made Royd stare blankly for a moment. After blinking, He nodded and said, I seem to remember that there is. Sethel, do you remember where it is? Yes. Shove it immediately. Under Sethel's operation, the map of Narita's surroundings was displayed on the screen one by one. Royd, who was a little confused at the beginning, began to feel that something was wrong after seeing Ray Minkai's deep thought as he carefully looked at the map. The next moment, Royd, who learned from Ray Minkai to look at the map, thought of a possibility. The geography of this area, Royd pondered for a moment and immediately exclaimed, Is there a hot spring nearby? Royd? Cecil was still a little confused. Kay, I know what you're thinking. But to achieve that level, we would need at least the radiation of Lakshata, Royd said to Lame Minkai, who was deep in thought, after gesturing for Cecil to calm down. However, Ray Minkai shook his head. No, anything was possible. Royd, when the war broke out a few years ago, Neon didn't have nightmare. But after a few years, the guerrillas who had lost their country suddenly had the same nightmare as Glasgow. Are there no other factors involved? Ray Minkai's words stunned Royd. He waved his hands and said, How scary. How terrifying. It's too scary. Scary? Royd, it seems that the Lakshata you mentioned just now has become your enemy. Ray Minkai glanced at Royd and continued. For what you said just now, I can make a conjecture. Let's assume that the Lakshata you mentioned is a technician on par with the Britannia Empire. Then, as an opposing force against the Britannia Empire, there's no reason for them to give up on recruiting Lakshata. Royd's face gradually showed a hint of hesitation and sighed. If what you said is true, then this place will definitely become a purgatory. Lakshata's radiation is enough to cause a big explosion here. After hearing Royd's confirmation, Ray Minkai nodded. Now, it was time for Department Q to attack. Veretta, inform everyone to prepare for attack. I'll go see the Deputy Governor. After confirming his conjecture, Ray Minkai once again boarded the mothership. In fact, he didn't need to board the mothership again. He only needed to talk to Euphemia through the communication device. But Ray Minkai knew that asking for an attack and receiving an order to attack were two different things. Due to the unpleasantness in the previous battle meeting, Ray Minkai felt that he needed to meet Euphemia in person. Otherwise, those staff officers might stop Department Q's attack in the name of not being allowed to attack without permission. Of course, if he could convince Euphemia, the former would naturally become the latter, and Department Q would accept the order to attack. What? Kay, say that again? Euphemia, surrounded by staff officers, couldn't believe her ears. Yes, Your Highness. According to me and Royd's analysis of the geographical information and related intelligence around Narita, it is very likely that there is an unknown force hiding in the dark, waiting for the right time to trigger a man-made geographical disaster, thus causing the governor's battle plan to fail. Ray Minkai briefly explained his conjecture. How is that possible? Man-made geographical disaster? Kay, have you watched too many movies? Our staff officers have speculated countless possibilities. How is it possible for the Neon Liberation Front to achieve this? Sure enough, the staff officer standing next to Euphemia refuted Lame Minkai's conjecture as soon as he opened his mouth. But Euphemia didn't care about the staff officer's words. Instead, she looked at Ray Minkai seriously and asked, Kay, other than the Neon Liberation Front, are you thinking of other forces? 0. The Black Knight Order. Ray Minkai slowly said a name that surprised the staff officers. How is that possible? No matter how popular the Black Knight Order is, it is impossible for them to trigger a man-made disaster. This isn't a game. The staff officers still insisted on their conjecture. But, whether it was Ray Minkai or Euphemia, they didn't take their words to heart. Kay, how confident are you? Euphemia asked. 80%. Deputy Governor. Ray Minkai said. 80%? Does that mean we have to retreat? Euphemia asked again. No, we don't have to retreat all our forces. Ray Minkai shook his head and continued. According to Royd and my conjecture, the unknown force hiding in the dark shouldn't be so crazy as to overturn the entire mountain range. The most likely thing is to choose the direction with the most troops as the breakthrough point. Therefore, we only need to retreat to the direction with the most troops. Euphemia was silent for a moment and turned to look at the staff officer. Staff officer, our main attack direction is the nightmare led by General Dalton, right? Yes. Deputy Governor. Just like what you said. After getting the answer she wanted, Euphemia turned to Ray Minkai and said, "K. Right now, due to the enemy's EMC, we can't immediately notify General Dalton. Therefore, Department Q's mission is to get to the front lines as quickly as possible and notify General Dalton to retreat. If you can't do it, then head to higher ground and wait for orders." "Yes, Your Highness." Then, just as Ray Minkai turned to leave, Euphemia suddenly called out to him, "K, if possible, I hope you can head to the governor's location." "Is the deputy governor worried about Zero?" "Yes. If you guess correctly, the Black Knight Order is behind this, then the governor will definitely be Zero's target." "Yes, Your Highness." A moment later, Lancelot rushed into the forest like a gust of wind. Looking at Lancelot rushing toward Cornelia's location on the electronic map, Euphemia's hands tightly clenched together. "K, I'm counting on you." At the same time, on top of a mountain, a group of people in black stood on top of the mountain as they silently looked at the forest that was gradually engulfed by the flames of war. "Zero, how long do we have to wait?" Sean worriedly asked Zero. A few minutes ago, the Black Knight Order broke out in an internal conflict caused by Shinichiro Tamashiro. If Zero did not explode with courage and power, the Black Knight Order that had just become famous would have been disbanded. They might even have been captured by the Britannia army that was entering Narita. "No, calm down." In the cold wind, Zero's voice was very calm. In front of Zero, the brand new Red Lotus Second Style was ready and waiting for orders. Boom! Halfway up the mountain, a loud explosion sounded. "Now, Karen, do it." Looking at the black clouds slowly rising from the mountainside, Zero's eyes lit up and shouted loudly. "Understood." Karen responded, raised her thumb, and pressed the trigger hard. Bang! With a sound similar to the sound of metal colliding, a reddish-black energy fluctuation burst out from the palm of the Red Lotus Second Style, rushed down the special cylindrical device under the palm, and rushed into the astonishing amount of underground water. There was a moment of silence. An earth-shattering explosion overturned the entire mountaintop, and countless gravel rushed into the air. Then, as the gravel fell, a torrent of turbulent water poured out of the hole in the mountain, rushing down the mountain like thousands of horses galloping. "Warning! Warning! Mountain flood has appeared." On the mothership, everyone looked at the mountain flood rushing down from the top of the mountain in shock. It really happened. The staff officers could hardly believe their eyes, and their faces were full of disbelief. Get the rescue team ready to set off. We must rescue the wounded and search for the people buried underground as soon as possible. Move fast. At this moment, the seemingly weak Euphemia suddenly burst out with an extraordinary decisiveness and determination. While quickly issuing orders, she also made the staff officers who had fallen into shock come back to their senses. "We are pressed for time. Leave the frontline matters to the governor and all the soldiers. What we can do now is to rescue the wounded. Do you understand?" "Yes, Your Highness." Chapter 37. Mountains crumbled and the earth cracked. However, when the scene depicted in this idiom was right in front of their eyes, humans knew that no matter how much power they had, they would never be able to escape from the power of nature. Adjutant Dalton and the 2nd Division pilots stared blankly at the mudslide that came down from the hill in front of them. If they had not dodged in time, the entire 2nd Division would have been buried under the powerful mudslide. Dalton slowly let out a breath and turned to look at the Sunderland team led by Veretta. If they had not suddenly appeared on the battlefield and issued a warning, it would have been too late. Moreover, what was laughable was that he had once doubted them. "Department Q. Thank you." Thank you very much. The noble knight thanked him sincerely. No, we are just following orders. Valletta replied in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. Is that so? I got it. Then, how about we invite Department Q to fight alongside us? Dalton smiled and casually made an invitation. No, we still have a mission. The Black Knight Regiment is ours. This is also the reason why Department Q was created. Valletta rejected Dalton's invitation. Is that so? Then, I wish you the best. Dalton was very straightforward. After saying goodbye, he led his subordinates and continued to charge towards the headquarters of the Liberation Front line. The mission here is complete. Let's go. Jeremiah, your wish is about to come true. The Black Knight Regiment. On a small path in the forest, two large transport vehicles were moving at high speed. However, there was no one in the driver's seat. There was only the locked steering wheel that was struggling from time to time. Such a strange scene attracted the attention of Lancelot, who was flying by from the side. What's that? Ray Minkai frowned and realized that something was wrong. It's not Brittany's vehicle. Then, it's the vehicle from the Liberation Front line. There was no need to hesitate. Lancelot raised his gun and fired. Virum! A blue light flashed, and the driver's seat of the leading transport vehicle was shot through. In the blink of an eye, a fireball exploded with a loud bang. Boom! Amidst the flames, two steel figures brought along countless sparks as they broke through the flames and rushed out of the billowing smoke. Rascal? No. Is it an improved model? When Ray Minkai saw the two tentacle-like whips that extended from the back of their heads, as well as the chainsword in their hands that didn't seem to be easy to deal with, he immediately realized that they should be the trump card of Narita's Liberation Front. Just in time, with a leap, Lancelot leaped out of the forest and landed in front of the forest path. You're not allowed to pass. Just give up and let me capture you. Ray Minkai's voice came from Lancelot's cockpit. Lancelot raised the variable Vari's rifle in his hand and fired 3 shots at the remaining vehicle that was still in good condition. Boom! Another fireball exploded. However, it didn't cause any results. Because when the first transport vehicle was blown up, the goods in the second transport vehicle took the initiative to cut open the warehouse and rushed into the forest to avoid Lancelot's shots. There is only one explanation for this behavior. Veteran? Trump card? This road is blocked. As soon as Ray Minkai's voice fell, 2 black figures suddenly rushed out of the forest. 2 orange-yellow lights flew through the air in a flash. Among them, there was a whistling sound. Lancelot casually threw the variable Vari's rifle to the ground and touched his waist with both hands. 2 swords appeared in his hands. In the blink of an eye, he blocked the orange-yellow lightning that attacked from left and right. Clang, 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 clang. It really is a chainsword. When Ray Minkai recognized the orange-yellow lightning, the wind blew again. This time, it was aimed at Lancelot's cockpit. Buzz! The unique roar of the chainsword when it was launched was mixed with the sound of the wind. It whistled and slashed toward Lancelot's cockpit. We got it! An old voice came from the rogue who launched the sneak attack from behind Lancelot. Obviously, this pilot was an older, mature, and steady person. However, no matter how steady a person was, there would be times when they would make a mistake. In front of him was proof. This was the first time Lancelot had truly appeared in front of the members of the Liberation Front, and it was also the first time he had fought with them. This was different from the information that the Black Knight Regiment had sent over from time to time on television. When the real Lancelot, driven by Ray Minkai, appeared in front of them and became their enemy, only then did they realize that they had overestimated Lancelot. The current pincer attack tactic was undoubtedly designed for the pilots of the Britannia Empire. But when facing Lancelot, it was so powerless. In just an instant, Lancelot, who was restrained by the 2 chainswords on the left and right, actually moved his feet, relying on the almost unreasonable power of the high-speed drive wheel. In the blink of an eye, his body spun. Bang! Bang! The 2 chainswords that were restraining Lancelot on the left and right were actually easily blocked by Lancelot's radiant vibration sword. Immediately after, Lancelot's upper body fell forward, his hands supporting himself on the ground, his feet raised, and he actually clamped the right hand of the rogue who launched the sneak attack at the critical moment. Then, Lancelot used the powerful inertia to bring the rogue who launched the sneak attack off the ground. At the same time, he twisted his body and threw the rogue into the forest not far away. Gotcha! 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 After knocking down several trees, the huge rogue finally came to a stop. However, judging from the electric sparks that were constantly jumping on the exposed wires, this rogue was most likely scrapped. Lancelot, who destroyed the enemy's joint attack with a raise of his hand, did not defeat the enemy because of this. Instead, Ray Minkai felt a sense of oppression. A white head. The rogue with a white head who escaped from the explosion slowly came in front of Lancelot after the other rogues surrounded Lancelot. "Who are you?" A calm male voice sounded from among the rogues. "Humph." Ray Minkai snorted coldly. "Before asking who others are, shouldn't you say your name first?" Tung Tong Kushiro. Japanese soldier, lieutenant colonel. The man introduced himself. "Tung Tong? So it's you? The man who created the miracle of Yen Island. But so what?" Ray Minkai sneered and announced loudly. "Even if you once created a miracle, now you can't pass through here. Come on, let me see how powerful Tung Tong, who is known as a miracle, is." In the next second, both sides moved at the same time. Other than the rogue that had been destroyed by Lancelot's attack, the remaining 4 rogues swarmed in from all directions. It was not that they did not plan to get rid of Lancelot's entanglement and split their forces to attack Cornelia's area. But in the short exchange, just now, they already knew how terrifying Lancelot was. Attack the encirclement. Be careful. The enemy's mobility is far beyond our rogues. The man named Tung Tong cautiously looked at Lancelot, who took the initiative to abandon the rifle and held 2 swords in his hands. Tung Tong had personally experienced the power of the rifle just now. With such a powerful weapon, he dared to abandon it and replace it with a more powerful weapon. The enemy was not simple. Tung Tong glared. Tung Tong took the lead and was the first to rush up in his rogue. The white head quickly enlarged in front of Lancelot's eyes. The chain sword in his hand whistled and tore through the wind, slashing toward Lancelot's chest and abdomen. Bang! Tung Tong's pupils shrank, and he quickly controlled the rogue to move to the side. Buzz! The sharp sword in Lancelot's hand, which had already turned dark red, broke through the wind and slashed down at the rogue's chest. Lieutenant Colonel, seeing that Tung Tong was in danger, his subordinates immediately supported him. Woo! 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 3 chain swords slashed toward Lancelot's vital parts one after another. However, this seemingly fatal joint attack was once again easily blocked by Lancelot's energy light shield with his left arm. What? How is this possible? The shock of his subordinates did not make Tung Tong retreat. Instead, he took advantage of the 1-second gap created by his subordinates and stabbed his sword toward Lancelot again. Bang! Another sound was heard. Lancelot reversed the hilt of his sword and blocked Tung Tong's attack with his right hand. "You're so powerful. Who are you? A powerful person like you shouldn't just be a nobody." Tung Tong's voice was transmitted to Ray Minkai's ears when the swords collided. "And nobody? You're right. I'm just a nameless knight, Kay." As soon as Ray Minkai's cold words fell, Lancelot used his strength and forced the 4 rogues to retreat. "Lieutenant Colonel, are you okay?" The subordinates saw that Tung Tong was safe and sound and couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Tung Tong shook his head and looked at Lancelot, who had retreated 10 meters away. "Kay, are you unwilling to tell me your name? Or do you think I'm not qualified to know your name?" "Powerful knight." Tung Tong's rogue stepped forward and stood 5 meters in front of Lancelot. He said loudly, "Knight, let's have a duel, if you're still proud of the glory of a knight." "Lieutenant Colonel." The subordinates were shocked. "Don't panic. After I start fighting with him, you guys go around and support Major General Kates as soon as possible. Leave this place to me." Tung Tong's voice was filled with an unprecedented resolution. Lieutenant Colonel, let us stay too. We can't defeat this white nightmare alone. This is an order. Tung Tong gave an order that could not be denied. However, in the next second, Raymond Kai's voice sounded. I refuse. I'm not a knight. Also, don't think you can walk past me. Lancelot raised his hand, and the hook on his left arm shot out, blocking the forest path. This path is blocked. That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.